Hey everybody, let us know in the chat if you can hear us okay.
And the random loud vehicle passing by.
Correct.
'Cause that's where it's at.
Okay, they can see us. Now can they hear us? There it is. Turn down the mic.
Amazing what happens when you turn on the mic.
Get on the mic.
And I suppose if it gets to be too much ambient sound, we can always change the mic to a cardioid too now, since we're both more or less facing it.
Yep, we could do that. Welcome everybody. We are going to be getting started here momentarily. Remember, what you are watching tonight is the live sausage making of a podcast. There will be pauses. There will be discussion as we work through technical stuff. There will be us starting and stopping recording and all that stuff. So what you're watching tonight is a live recording, okay? So warts and all, strings and wires, whatever other metaphor we can come up with, right?
And why is that, Stu? Because first and foremost, we are doing a podcast.
Right.
So you just happen to be privy to all the raw footage and audio making of said podcast. We will be, as Stu said, starting shortly. I'm just tweeting out things and all that good stuff. So,
All right.
Dissemination.
I am going to get us a final count of homework submissions.
We got a lot of homework.
Off the freaking charts.
We're going to be spending the weekend grading this stuff. All right. Enough of that. Phones down, people.
Okay. All right. We've got a total of 18 submissions.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. That's pretty good. All right. We're not going to use the sound system. So let's close it down, and I'm disarming the mic there for that.
All right.
Okay. Now, so let's do a little review, and while we're doing our little review, I'm going to go ahead and start a recording.
That'd be good.
We'll get the banter here if we have any, and then I'll restart the recording when we're ready to do cold opens and all that good stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, let's review.
Review.
So is this the thing we're using now?
Well, we've got our cold open.
Yeah.
And then we've got our intro.
And we are using this now, but we're
going to add
adding this in.
the subtitle.
Okay.
Seemed to make the most sense because seems to me this is our generic.
Yeah.
And then this is season specific. How come I lost one ear?
I don't know. I did too. I lost
my
the right.
the right.
The right.
Nope,
There it is again.
Okay, now it's back.
What the hell? Oh boy, our janky setup. Hey everybody, I see Kat. I say EJ. Thank you, EJ, who is our moderator tonight. If you run into any problems, please notify your moderator. 57 Strudel. Can you see that one? Oblivion Daedra. Okay.
Let's see. Yep.
That's a long way to look.
And we have the John B7.
Yep, the John
correct?
B7. Yep. All right.
Excellent. Welcome one, welcome all.
Well, we got a lot of material to cover tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
We've got a ton, and I don't see how we're going to get through it all.
Exactly.
So
what we're going to need to do is we're putting a system in place to make sure that we can address people's homework in as fair a process as possible. Joe and I discussed this at length this afternoon, and we came to the conclusion that doing it randomly doesn't work, right? Because the fact of the matter is, we've got 18 submissions, and it is going to be impossible for us to get through 18 submissions in, say, 2.5 hours. So, our question is, how can we do it fairly? We determined that doing it randomly wasn't going to work because you could randomly end up picking the same person every single episode, right? So we thought what we would do is we would basically start at the bottom, so the first submissions, and work our way towards the top of the list. We're going to get as far up that list as we can, and then in the next episode we're going to pick up the next one. And so we're going to basically be tracking your submissions. We'll be keeping track of whose submissions we talked about in which episode to make sure that we're not leaving anyone out.
Yep. So yeah, we're gonna cycle through everybody as best we can, jot down who we're doing so that we don't, like you had said, repeat. And then once we do get to a point, hopefully we will, get through everyone that's submitted, we'll start back over and come around the horn. So
yeah, that's the idea.
That's unfortunately the way with the great response that we've gotten. I think the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's the only way we can think of to tackle it and make sure we're not shortchanging the conversation. We absolutely don't want to shortchange the conversation in any way. So, so that's how we're going to handle it. And I think we better get started here pretty quick, or we're going to run out of time.
Yeah,
we're also going to take
minutes.
an abbreviated intermission. So we'll shorten up the intermission to make sure we save as much time as we can.
Correct.
All right, so that brings us to cold open and intro time, right?
I think so.
How did we do it last time? Did we have a single recording with just the cold open on it, or
What is going on?
I don't know. It keeps cutting out this ear.
Yeah.
It's got to be the headphone amp, right? There
There it is.
it is.
Just not seated.
Not seated all the way. Okay.
That was me. I set those up.
Cable management issues. Yes. All right. So let me restart this.
We did intro. Yeah, we did cold open.
Okay.
Intro. We can lump that all together.
No, last time around we had a bunch of mid rolls and all that stuff. We don't need to do that tonight,
Yeah. So
that's
it's kind of hard. It's apples and oranges.
All right, here we go. So it doesn't hurt us at all to do these separately if we need to.
Correct.
Okay. And are we just going to? Whenever Matt's not here, we always make a joke about him not being here when we do the cold open. Maybe we just let it go and we try to be professional for once in our lives.
We could.
It just doesn't balance out,
I know.
right? We're so used to doing 3 names.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, I gotta make sure that recording has resumed, and it has. All right, cold open. You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, Season 3, Episode 2. I'm Stu.
And I'm Joe.
And then what? Is this part of our cold open?
No, that's a different thing.
Okay. So that's where it would cut and go to music?
Yes.
Right?
Just a quick, 15 seconds.
Okay,
or so.
cold open, and then it went to music.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the intro.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording there. We'll save that as a separate bite. I kind of like the whole thing, like we didn't know what to do because there was a name missing. So... Oh my god, this is a professional operation.
Well, it'll sound that way once I splice it in.
Yeah. That makes me think we could actually use the soundboard. We could use the soundboard if I just let the sound play through the speaker here.
If it's loud enough and that picks it up, we could.
Yeah, we could. Anyway. All right, so now the intro. And I think we're going to be skipping updates. There's not going to be any announcements tonight.
I've got nothing.
Okay. And the no dicking around policy is still in full force.
Yeah, that's always in full force.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So the intro's pretty much the same with the exception of the...
Yeah, okay. All right, you ready?
Yep.
So do you want me to record the intro separately, or should we just launch right into the podcast?
Let's
prefer?
record it, pause it,
Okay.
and then... So, yeah, we don't need to cut it into a separate track.
All right. Got it. All right. Get your belches out of the way,
Yep.
because we are recording.
Pardon me.
Are we recording, in fact?
I don't know.
I gotta zoom in to make sure. Yeah. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Looks like it.
Give me some sound, Joe.
1 2. I see a green bar moving around, so that's good. Oh,
Okay.
I see waveforms.
Okay, cool. Give me another check though. Your waveforms are lower than mine.
Yeah, they always are. You might have to boost me a little bit.
Okay. Well, we're recording this as multi-track, so
Right.
you can boost it in post if you feel like there's not enough
Yeah,
there.
I will.
I've got the gain set equally
Yep.
there.
Yeah, if I screw around with this too much, then
Yeah, it's
it's
gonna
going to
jack
mess
it
everything.
up.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll deal with that later.
Mm-hmm.
Just
All
talk
right.
softly.
I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And carry a big stick.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Here you go.
oh, it's way bigger than that.
I don't think so.
Okay. Welcome to Character Crusade Unbound, the Hidden Agenda, a community roleplay project where we create a challenge and then play together and share our stories. This is episode 2 called Hero, and we are discussing the beginnings of your character. And we are going to be doing a very short discussion at the beginning of this episode, talking about the early stages of your character and what that's all about, the call to action, if you will. And we're going to be tossing around some ideas about that. That discussion will take us about 15 minutes, and then we are going to hit your homework, and we will be tackling the homework submissions tonight in the order that they were received. But that will be changing as we go forward. We're going to be cycling through, keeping track of whose characters we've talked about in each episode to make sure that we've got every opportunity to talk about everybody's characters and stories throughout this season because, Joe, the submissions have been overwhelming.
They have been overwhelmingly awesome.
Awesome! Yeah, they have been. You guys really came through. Now, the other thing that we want to mention, because some of you, I know, will want to work on this even as we're recording. On Discord, there is now a Season 3 character text channel. You can start entering your characters there. Please, when you go there, make sure you look at the pinned posts because that has the rules on how you are to post there, okay? It lets you know the format in which you should post and how to store your character stuff, all of that, okay? So you're going to want to check that out, all right? So feel free to go out and do that anytime. Now, the reason that we decided that we were going to save it until now is that
You want to start that again?
yeah, I do. Okay. So, anywho, the reason that we decided to hold off on letting you put your character posts on Discord until the first episode is that we knew you were all going to be out there working hard to create characters. People were going to be in various stages of character creation, and that we were going to spend this episode talking about the beginnings of the characters themselves. The last episode was completely dedicated to helping you and us understand what the play rules were for Season 3. All right, so we felt it was most appropriate to start posting characters on Discord at Episode 2. Episode 2 is, in fact, about actual characters, whereas Episode 1 was about setup.
Setup. And,
right?
Yep.
So we spent the last 2 weeks with you guys going through the rules, coming up with your ideas, building characters, and now you've all got characters at varying levels varying stages of creation, now is the time to post. So I think this is going to be our routine for future seasons as well.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah.
So
I think it just makes sense.
Yep.
I know that there was some frustration about us not opening up for posting right away, but we kind of want to do it now in conjunction with this first topic, which is hero.
trying to keep it in sync a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's time for us to get into it.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, I'm going to stop recording here.
Perfect.
Let's restart recording.
All right.
Now we got to switch over.
Switch.
Okay, now all y'all, we are going to record this lecture segment, if you will, as a separate piece. And there is a visual aid that we're going to put up here for you. All right?
Wow, that's nice. You don't even have to take notes.
I know.
You can if you'd like. Get out your Character Crusade Unbound notebook. You know, it'd be more of a Trapper Keeper.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'd have season 1 in one section, season 2 in another.
Yeah.
Season 3 in another.
Abso-absolutely. All right. So, let's just jump into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Episode 2 is called Hero, but we're also talking about anti-heroes. In essence, what we're really talking about here is your characters and how you choose to create them. They can be either or, but regardless of whether they're a hero or an anti-hero, there are certain things that they'll have in common. Now, if you haven't noticed already, the way that our entire season is structured is basically, the whole thing is built around narrative structure of a classic arc plot. And what you're looking at right now is a classic arc plot structure. So for those of you who are listening into this podcast, and this is audio for you, we are referring to a diagram of arc plot structure. Essentially what it is you've got across the bottom a story that is told in 3 acts. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Imagine that. All right? And there are different stages along the way. One of the first stages is the call to adventure. And that's where we're at right now. This is the point at which your character makes the decision to become a hero or an anti-hero, or to be the protagonist, if you will. And so we thought it would be great to use this as a visual aid. Now, this visual aid is actually created by a woman named Ingrid Sundberg. She created this back in 2013, and it is one of the best illustrations of arc plot structure that I've seen. And I liked it so much that I decided to adopt it for this. If you're interested in looking up information about her, we're going to make sure that that is in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah, this diagram and links to the source will all be in the show notes, as well as on the website at Character Crusade. So,
absolutely.
If you're having trouble now, or if you're listening to it and obviously don't have a visual, you can go to Character Crusade and find it.
Mm-hmm.
So all that good information will be there. It's
really good information. And I think what I liked most about her explanation is that she gave some really great examples from sources that everyone would recognize, or featuring kind of classic plot elements that people would recognize. So I want to frame this up just by first reading a quote that I thought was really amazing. And this is somebody that Ingrid quotes in her documentation. She says, "I took a master class with Billy Wilder once, and he said that in the first act of a story, you should put your character up in a tree. The second act, you should set fire to the tree. And then in the third act, you get him down." And that was a quote by Gary Kurtz. And that gets exactly to this idea of us trying to create for our characters a scenario in which they can grow and change. All right?
You know, and this actually also supports, you know, some of the interviews and discussions that I've heard with George Lucas, even on Star Wars. You know, that
Right.
you get to The Empire Strikes Back of his original trilogy. Well, it's the middle act of a 3-act play where everything and you know, our heroes are in they're in dire straits, and
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of why it's the most ominous part of the movie series.
Absolutely.
And I think that can be carried in any type of, you know, literature or movie that uses this dynamic, and this dynamic is used because it works.
I would agree.
There's a reason that it's a structure.
Yeah, that is why it is referred to as the classic arc plot structure, because it's been used many times in many really, really great stories.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of things that go into making a great story besides the plot itself. The plot has to be supported by great characters and a good setting
Right.
and all kinds of other interesting things.
Yeah.
So I think that is a useful thing at this stage to kind of frame up what we're talking about here and how we intend to use this, because we're all playing a game. There are a lot of things in game we can't control. We're not suggesting that you map things out like this. However, what we like to use this device for is a way to prompt us to start thinking about things differently and to start thinking about what we can do in game to give our characters some real agency and to make change in game that will be meaningful from their perspective.
Right.
Okay.
They're more like guidelines.
Exactly. It's like Joe said, they're just guidelines. So one of the things I think is really cool about this, if you look down in the lower left-hand area of the diagram, for those of you who are watching, for those of you who aren't, where this diagram starts is on the far left-hand side. It's basically, it looks like climbing a mountain, and at the bottom is where your character starts. At the top of the mountain is where they fall over the peak at the climax of the story. And there are several stages along the way. What I think is fascinating is this idea that at the beginning of the story, we have a portrayal of our character as being in an ordinary world situation. And what I like about that is the ordinary world situation allows us to set up the fantastical. The fantastical seems a lot more fantastic when you have the ability to contrast it with an ordinary world situation first.
Right.
Yeah. And so a lot of times when we are building our characters, we're talking about character background. Oh, what's my character's background? And people will create exhaustive backgrounds. Part of the reason why I don't like the exhaustive background is what that does is it puts all the ordinary world stuff in the past and doesn't give you anything directly to compare your play to, right? I think it'll go away. So by starting out in an ordinary world situation, you've got some really cool things that you can start to compare that to as your character changes and grows and quests start kicking in and all that good stuff.
Right. And you know, looking at it from that perspective, actually just kind of thinking about it now, because I have always personally been one for exhaustive backgrounds, just because it's fun to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in this context, what it helps to do is create that background that allows you to bring it into the present.
Right.
So you're not bemoaning specifics.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of just a general. And for someone like me, that's actually a really good point to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. Where you can still make that background, you can still have a rich character history, but maybe it doesn't need to be so exhaustive.
Yep.
You know, maybe it just needs to be enough that it makes what he's doing now make sense.
Exactly. I think we're trying to build some contrast you know?
Right.
And I think the contrast is much more interesting and so much more real if we've got in-game contrast as well as whatever we've documented.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. So if you frame it up in this way, I have created a lot of characters who start as ordinary world characters. And there's a specific reason for that. It's because I like the juxtaposition of this person in the ordinary world being transported into becoming the hero or the anti-hero for whatever reason, and offsetting that experience. So Robard Graves was managing a mine. Vander Nightbrook was really nothing more than a courier.
A mail carrier.
Yeah, he was a mail carrier who finds himself in a crazy situation, right? And I spent a lot of time having him just be a courier before I even got into the first quest, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so these are examples of that kind of thing happening.
You know, and I think probably one of you've all of your characters have been really successful in one way or another, but I think probably one of the more surprising success characters you've had, and I think illustrates this really well, is Etienne.
Yeah.
That started as kind of just a get a feel for the new SE format type of character, and he just took off. And I think in part, even though it wasn't specifically designed off of this type of background, or this type of structure rather, it followed it. He followed, he started out as just a person in the world.
Yep. A person in the world. He was kind of wandering through the Reach. You know, he was being forced into performing this task, becoming this hunter that he didn't really want to be, but he had to do it.
Right, which is where your background came in to bring that forward just enough to kick it off.
Yeah, that is a really awesome point. Figure out your ordinary world situation and use the stuff that you're writing in your background stories to reinforce it. Not to overshadow it, but to enhance it and make it even more interesting and more vivid, right? Yeah. I think that's a fantastic idea.
And that gets you to our starting point of this episode.
It does.
Perfect.
Yeah. Think about Marl. Started out as a tutor. Nothing but a tutor.
Yeah.
He's a tutor.
Tutoring children,
no less, right? And then
really difficult children
started to happen, right? So
I forgot about that.
Idastog, basically, he's a castaway. He's got nothing going on. He literally walks up on the beach and he meets his brothers, and it's ordinary world as they trek across through the forest, across the country. You know,
at that very beginning, really just out of survival.
Right.
And I think too, a lot of what you do in the present might strike ideas of how they could be represented in the past. So there's still a correlation, but you don't have to have all of that detail up front in your past, because you can make that stuff up as you go, as like, I'm going to do this because, what if he was this in his background,
right?
Or she, or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea.
So it's kind of it's backfilling, really.
It is.
When it makes sense to do so.
Yeah, you made a good point there. I really like that idea that the backgrounds and the vignettes that we write could, at the beginning at least, kind of be written in service to helping us to understand who the character is in a normal sense.
Right.
Because we want to know, part of what makes the hero story interesting is understanding who the person was before they became the hero. And what we're talking about in this episode is not that your characters are going to become heroes at this stage in the adventure. What we're talking about is the inciting incident that is going to make them start to pursue whatever this is. So we have an interval where we get to understand who the character is in the ordinary world as a real person, which then is followed by the inciting incident. And the inciting incident is that one event that sets them on the path. It's the event that sets them on the path. And there are a lot of opportunities in Skyrim for inciting incidents. A lot of them are associated with quests. Right?
Right.
A lot of them are associated with a quest that you know, right? Where, you know, hey, I'm just a normal guy. I'm out fishing, and I go into town to buy some more bait. And I walk into the store, and there are these people bemoaning the fact that they lost the golden claw. That is an inciting incident. Now suddenly,
right,
the character is inspired to do something that maybe they normally wouldn't. What would take a person who was a farmer or a fisherman or a regular person and move them to such a degree that they would pick up a sword and do something drastic?
Right. You know, whether it be selfish or unselfish motives, that's kind of irrelevant. That's up to you.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you're going the hero path or the anti-hero path, you decide what the inciting incident is. But it's got to be something powerful enough in the context of that character that it would cause them to break from the ordinary existence they've had up until that point, right? So this kind of helps to frame things up, I feel like.
Yep.
Because as you start to learn who your character is, we've got these traits we've decided on, right? We understand what those are, and we've crafted some kind of a personality around them. We understand what our circles of character conflict are. So now we can start to imagine for these characters what would be an inciting incident for this character and what wouldn't be. And now your in-game decisions can start to make more sense, because you might walk in to the Riverwood Trader and say, oh, they've stolen your golden claw, boo-hoo for you, I'm out of here.
Right.
It's not an inciting incident because that character could care less. Exactly. Something else might be an inciting incident for that character, however, right?
Or it could be a super interesting quest because it's, you know, is it really solid gold? You know, maybe exactly. I'm going after it because if it's golden, it must be gold.
Exactly.
And I'm all about the gold.
Yep.
You know, maybe you don't give it back.
Yep.
You know, and I like the fact that you brought up that particular quest because it's short and sweet. It's right there. You don't have to travel all over the map.
Yep.
It can be a little difficult at lower level just because that end boss is kind of tough for low level.
He was for me last night, and Vander's like level 22, and I had a hell of a time dealing with him last night.
Right. So depending on kind of what your style is, that can be a really challenging quest. But I like it because it is so restricted. It's really it's a nice quest from that perspective.
Yep. And now by looking at this, right, you can start to see how the game itself was crafted, right? The Golden Claw is supposed to be the inciting incident for the first-time Skyrim player that will drive them down the path of becoming the Dragonborn, because then that is the point at which the snowball starts to roll, okay? So, tonight, what you're thinking about is ordinary world. Who is my character in the ordinary world, and how is that juxtaposed with the individual that they will become, and what will my inciting incident be, and how is my selection of that inciting incident that will force me down the path of being a hero or an anti-hero related to what you understand of your character's personality. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the hero discussion. We are going to move on to listener homework. Okay.
Sweet.
End of the recording. Let's go forward here. All right. Now let's switch over.
And for those of you that are looking at the structure diagram here, if you're like me, the first thing you thought of was, if I'm correct in my math terms, it was like the Pythagorean theorem. You know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Is it a right triangle? Is it? So there's a certain math looking element, but if you really dig into it and look at it and read it, it's a great visual of how to kind of break down a story.
I would agree, and we're going to be referring back to this in every episode as we get near the end. Like we said when we started season 3, we really went back to the drawing board and tried to restructure the whole program from the start. And we thought, if we're going to restructure the program and we know we're going to have 6 episodes, let's build it around arc plot story structure. And that is exactly how the episodes are laid out. You'll notice that as we go further in, we have conversations about the struggle that characters have and the change that they have, and who are the antagonists in our story, and how do we give them color. I mean, it all kind of comes together around that structure. So to me, that made the most sense to actually structure the whole thing around the arc plot structure, since that's what we're all about here anyway.
Yeah. No, it was a great find and a nice adaptation.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
That brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to submissions. Now, I am thinking.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking this needs to be bigger. Okay, so as we said, for this episode, we had 18 submissions, and we are going to start at the very first submission that came in for this season, and we're going to work our way through them. Okay, and we're going to get through as many as we can tonight, and then in episode 3 of the podcast, we're going to start by, first of all, picking up the homework from the next episode, but the homework of the viewers that haven't been mentioned yet. The viewers and listeners who haven't been mentioned yet, okay? So the idea is we want to keep advancing the homework. Like next week, we don't want to be coming back to episode 1 homework. We want to be focused on episode 2 homework, but we're going to make sure that when we do that, we're also focused on players, listeners who have not been covered yet.
Yes.
Okay? So that way we'll get the best coverage possible. And then when we get to the end of the list, we'll just kind of work our way around again. Okay?
Cool.
So you want to take turns reading these submissions, Joe?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, let's do that.
You want to take turn per submission, or like split?
I'll read the first submission, and you can get the second one. How about that?
All right, we'll do that way.
Okay, and for those of you who are new to this podcast, if you are wondering how you go about submitting your homework and finding out about the challenges, everything you need to know is up on the screen right now. Homework and rules. You can go to unbound.charactercrusade.com, and you'll find all the rules as well as the submission form for your homework. And if you need support, go out to our Discord community, which can be found at discord.charactercrusade.com. Okay. So our first submission comes from Zimzilla99. The character is Verathan Dreth. Sounds a lot like Dunmer to me.
Does a little bit, doesn't it?
A little bit. Okay, let's go through this. Hopefully I can read this. Okay. Verathan was once a priest of the temple serving the reclamation with undying loyalty. He lived in Blacklight with his wife, having a stable and quiet, peaceful life compared to how plenty of other Dunmer citizens were living. However, with the tide of refugees from Vardenfell and those fleeing from the Argonians, soon Blacklight became the new capital, and more came to settle. This caused an influx of new priests being added to the temple. Unaware to him and the others, some served the House of Troubles. One night, when Verathan came home, he found his home desecrated and his wife in critical condition. She explained how her attackers had come by order of their master, Molag Bal, to birth a child of Cold Harbor. When time came for her to deliver, she produced one child. In a mixture of disgust and pain, what does it say?
I lost where you were.
When the time came to deliver, she produced I think this meant no child.
Okay.
Don't you think? I mean, that was the whole deal, right?
Oh, yeah. She
produced no child. In a mixture of disgust and pain, he left her side to pray at the temple. When he returned, his wife cried that the child had disappeared. Oh, so it did birth the child. The child disappeared while he was gone.
Oh,
That's how I'm reading that.
Okay, yep.
He went to the temple and came back and there was no child. Okay.
All right.
The week after his wife would become sickly, unable to leave her bed, Verathan would leave her with her dear friends to his shame. Verathan would travel to Skyrim to stay with his brother Romlin in hopes that comfort in being among friends would soothe his pain. He took a ship to Windhelm and stayed for a couple of days before making his way to Riften. While on his way to Skyrim, he heard tales of vampires and swore that maybe the child of his wife may be hiding in Skyrim as well as the one who committed the act against his wife. Okay, so let's do a quick review of the setup. Interesting setup.
Yeah, I like it.
I think what I like about this is a couple of things. First of all, it's an interesting take on the loss of the child, the disappearance of the child.
Right.
So, Zimzilla has basically chosen to say that the child is, instead of just like vanishing in the womb,
not being there,
was actually born and then kidnapped. That's how I read that.
Well, yeah, or let's see.
His wife just was crying when he came back and said the child had disappeared.
So the child was born and then disappeared, and it could be that the child was kidnapped or somehow came to be in Skyrim as part of the vampires.
Well, it's clear from his reading of the story that Verathan somehow believes that the child was kidnapped, even though his wife doesn't confirm that's what's really happened, right?
Since he was gone, there's no evidence one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Verathan is kind of in that turmoil of, with his wife's relationship and what happened there. It's almost kind of a unholy version of the Virgin Mary kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way it sounds, I don't know exactly how it's being played out, but he definitely says here that she says the child had disappeared, not that the child was taken. Right. And then he's probably listening to that saying, "You're crazy. Someone stole our child. Who kidnapped our child?" And then there's also this issue of this character being sort of vulnerable in an interesting way. I mean, we see a real dark side to this character as he abandons his family.
Right off the gate.
You know? He abandons his family, goes to Skyrim, and now is starting to engage in all this self-talk, convincing himself that maybe the vampires kidnapped the baby. This is like a really interesting study in delusion and anger, right? Where people will blame others and other institutions for their problems.
They'll find a way to justify.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, and I kind of like that setup too, because as we all know, if you go and pursue those vampires, you're not going to find a baby among them. No, right? So he kind of from the get-go sets him up to have this sort of futile search across Skyrim for a child that's not really there, all the while trying to convince himself that that's what happened, and maybe justify his reasons for leaving his wife. Oh, she was lying to me and she made all this stuff up, and maybe she killed the child or gave it away because she didn't want it and wouldn't tell me, and all these things, right? So
I guess the only child vampire I can think of is Babette, and that's clearly not anywhere near this realm.
No, not at all. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah, that's a good setup. I like that take. And, Zimzilla got to work right away. I mean, this submission came in on the 26th of November. So that's getting down to it pretty quick right there.
Getting down to business.
Yeah.
I like it.
So as far as character status goes, we're going to do abbreviated character status, okay? Beat Torborn Shatter Shield to save the or to give the Argonians better pay. Sounds like, despite being a Dunmer, he has no ill will towards the Argonians, so he's kind of standing up for them, right?
Okay. Yep. Which is a real interesting spin with the black light.
Yeah.
Background.
Exactly. Right. And then the second item here is goes into the fight with Rolf Stonefist, beats the snot out of him, effectively defending the Dunmer. Okay.
Okay.
Killed Angranor once honored. Angranor was also present. Okay, so
yep.
Dealt with both of those guys. And then brought Shavi's amulet back to her from Uttering Hill's cave. So he's arrived in Windhelm and is immediately becoming this altruistic saver of the people.
Vigilante almost.
Like a vigilante. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a way to maybe take out aggression and then try to justify what you're doing, right?
Right.
Like maybe sometimes vigilantes are driven by guilt and shame, you know?
That's a good point.
So,
right. They're trying to prove their
they're trying to
angst.
Make up for past ills.
Right. I guess that's what I was trying to get to.
They're trying to make up for past transgressions by doing good things, right? And sometimes those good things they manifest themselves in ways that are particular to the character. So if you've got a character who's by their very nature violent, they may consider, vigilantism is being what they're good at and what they're driven to do.
Right. So, justifies their violence.
Exactly. All right, that was a good one. That was a really good one. I would say Zimzilla leveled up. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay. All right. On to the next one, Joe.
All right. Let me scooch around here a little bit. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Before you read this, did you want me to pause recording and restart between each one? Or do a few? Or what do you want to do?
Yeah, we could restart between each one.
You want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it creates more files, but they're shorter, so they're easier to deal with.
Okay, I got you. Okay. All right, you ready?
Nope, but let's do it.
Okay, let's restart.
I'm never ready.
Never. All right.
Okay.
It's all you.
I need to scroll. All right. So, this is from Colonel Dave. Character Ghoul. Ghoul?
Yeah. That's how I'd pronounce that.
Ghoul. Let's see. The narrative is in the form of, looks like dialogue of
cool
some sort.
Yeah. Well, we asked for creative writing. We asked you to try to come up with some clever ways to do this, and I think we're going to see stuff all over the map.
Yeah, and that's good. I probably will forego any type of character voicing. So
okay. Maybe we'll save that for episode 6.
Yeah, there we go. We'll get Matt when he can do his fingers in his mouth.
Yeah,
and stuff.
There you go.
Okay. Svari sat near the old Nordstones, making a doll out of bits of bone and reed. She hummed as she worked, hardly looking up as the dark Argonian slipped from the surface of the lake and came up onto the island. He had a few fish slung to his belt and fox carcass. Hi, Uncle Ghoul. Guess what I'm making? Ghoul raised his dripping head and stared at her with his always blank yellow eyes. This one told you to be making a fire. Food is here. Svari pretended she didn't hear him. She was tired of making old dirty fires. She wanted a pretty doll. Sighing, Gaul walked over to the fire pit, glared at her for a moment, and started placing a pile of dry leaves and wood. Tell me about the dragon again, Svari smiled. No, no dragon stories. You are being punished. You were to build a fire. Aw, please. I promise I'll be good. Gaul sighed again. This one will tell you about the dragon, if you promise not to speak for an hour. Svari frowned and thought. An hour was a long time. But she loved hearing about the dragon, especially because it was a story about her. Plus, if she could distract Uncle Gaul, he might forget about her punishment. Okay, I promise. Now, can I hear the story? Gaul looked at her for a few seconds. She couldn't read his expression, if he had any, but she knew by his consideration that she had won. A grin spread across her face. All right, if you promise, Gaul went back into the building the fire. It was years ago, and this one was traveling with friends of your parents. You were very young. This was not far from the lake. Where were my parents? In a city. The friends were taking you there when the dragon attacked. Was it a big dragon? Be quiet. This one is telling a story. It was a very large dragon with black, glistening scales. It came down next to the cabin where we were. The ground shook. Dust came down from the rafters. Then there was the fire. Hot, even through the walls of the cabin. There was screaming outside. Svari shivered, trying to imagine it. Then the dragon flew away, but this one took you and ran. The dragon did not see us leave. That was years ago. Now, be quiet. Uncle Gaul, are you going to take me to my parents soon? Gaul looked up at her for a long moment before sparking the fire to life. Be quiet. You promised.
Love that.
That was a great intro.
That is cool. So we're setting the stage here.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I like how it does set up some of that ordinary world stuff, right? So I think, it tells us a little bit about Gaul without telling us much about his actual story.
Right.
But we learn some things about him.
Yeah, we learn that he rescued a child, his niece, presumably. I mean, he's at least claiming to be her niece, and we have no reason not to believe that. She seems like it doesn't really go into a lot of detail of how old she was at the time of the dragon attack. She obviously doesn't remember it. I mean, otherwise she would know the story herself and not have to be told.
Yeah.
So she likes to hear the story because it was about her, presumably when she was young.
Right.
So maybe Gaul is her uncle, maybe not. Maybe he's someone else. But at this point, we have no reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, she
So
says, are you taking me to my parents?
Yeah, we know the relationship, but we don't know how, other than this dragon attack, that she was separated from her parents. Now, is that the truth? Is he telling the truth? We don't know. Mm-hmm. Are her parents dead? We don't know. Were they killed in the fire?
Yeah, that's great.
This is kind of a tantalizing, just gives you a little bit to chew on, that you want a little more because there's enough left out. Yeah,
I like it. I like it a lot. It sets the tone. I love the relationship, of the uncle to the niece. He's obviously her guardian. He's obviously trying to be a parent to her.
Right.
And he's obviously stern, but he's got a soft, squishy middle. You know, all this kind of stuff.
Right, right.
So, okay. Now there's a section here.
Yeah, the character status. So, the main plot is a world where the people work nonstop and are not free. And then, as often happens in such instances, a riot breaks out.
Yeah.
Our subplot is, you know, the woman that gives birth to no baby.
Yeah.
And then the main trait of the character is stubborn, and the secondary is rude. So
Yeah.
Colonel Dave chose to be a rude, stubborn character.
And you can kind of see that come through.
He's very short.
Does it in a subtle way, I think. That's really cool.
At
and
least,
realistic.
now, this is kind of where some of those ambiguities can come into play, because Gaul's reaction, or the way he addresses his niece or his own blood, could be much different than how he would approach others.
Yeah.
He might be a little reserved in how he treats her. You know, be quiet, where he might just fall out, tell someone else to just plain shut it.
Yeah.
You know, so there, you know, to speak of the soft middle, you know, so he might have that gray area, which, you know, that's just how it is. So if we go further on here, Gaul was an Argonian slave to a band of dark elves who magically kidnapped Ulfric Stormcloak's firstborn daughter. They intended to use her to blackmail or possibly supplant Ulfric, to put into place a more Dunmer-oriented rule in Skyrim. While they were hiding, a dragon attacked the cabin, burning the dark elves alive and leaving Gaul with the baby girl. Oh. Mm-hmm. He took her and ran, hiding and surviving without interacting with any living person aside from bandits who might attack that he would kill. Doing this for 10 years. Gaul is very distrusting of outsiders, but knows he has a very useful key in perhaps freeing his people who slave away for scraps in Windhelm. So while he pretends to be a caretaker, he is pondering how best to use her for his people. Return her to Ulfric for a reward, or sell her to the Empire. Kill Ulfric and replace him,
With
or
his daughter.
will the feelings for the girl increase as he spends more time and ultimately impact his decision? So there's kind of a real dichotomy going on here. So there's the selfish aspect of he's playing caretaker for this Dunmer girl,
right?
Or this Nord girl, I guess it would be. Dunmer or
I think she's Nord. She's Nord.
Yeah, she'd have to be Nord if she's Ulfric Stormcloak's firstborn. So keep her, get her back for personal gain, keep her to supplant her real father that she doesn't know.
Yep.
For
that's brilliant.
For gain of a you know, the greater good, if you will.
Yep.
Which anytime greater good, that phrase comes up, it's always a disaster.
Yeah, almost.
Anything that happens for the greater good usually ends up in fire and brimstone.
Absolutely. And look at what he's doing here too. He's playing on Xbox One, and he's using a mod that allowed him to take on Svari, the girl who lives in solitude. And so she's actually adventuring around with him as a follower, which means he's got to protect her. He's got to make camps for her. He's got to make sure she's got food to eat and she's cared for.
So there's that real immersive type of aspect to it.
Very, very, very cool.
So in this case, it's it seems to me like the interpretation of the birth without no baby is really a child that has been torn away.
Yeah. Possibly, unless there's more here that we don't quite understand yet.
Right, right. But, because, I mean, we did say that not everything has to come to fruition right away. I mean,
yeah,
this whole concept can happen in the future. So we might not be there yet. But that's really cool.
Yeah. No, that is really, really well done. I like it. And interestingly enough, too, I mean, it's a really interesting, sophisticated, heavy story with lots of potential to go lots of different directions and, of course, cause a lot of inner turmoil and change with a character over time.
Right.
But it's all being done with one mod.
Yeah. And
primarily.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's the center.
I mean, everything else would be window dressing. That follower mod is the centerpiece.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you can break out into, will she ever really find out the truth, and then what?
Yeah.
Does she disown him?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on the decisions that he makes, right?
Right. That's what I'm getting at is, all the decisions made along the way will impact how that outcome comes out.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's fantastic.
Excellent.
What a great job. All right. Colonel Dave, you leveled up too. Congratulations.
I have a feeling everyone's going to be
leveled up. I think so too. All right. We're going to stop the recording here. I'm going to switch us over here so we can see the chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You ready?
Do it.
Recording is underway. Okay, our third homework submission for episode 2 comes from EJ. The character name is Hegatha, pronounced like Agatha, Sidon. All right? Hegatha Sidon. Okay. The short narrative comes from a report from the 25th of Hearthfire, 4th Era, 201. I arrived in Skyrim on the 17th as instructed. My investigation began in Riften. Following a lead, I picked up on entry that Maven Blackbriar and the Blackbriar family may have useful information or else may be important to observe. I've gleaned that Maven is a cutthroat Mead Baroness with connections to the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild, and the East Empire Company. In order to gain her trust and a reasonable amount of protection, I've infiltrated the guild under the supervision of a Nord named Brynjolf. He's not as interesting as Mercer Frey or Delvin Mallory. I would request any information the other agents have gathered about these two, as well as the Blackbriars. They both seem much more influential than I suspected. Maven, less so. She seems to be more interested in me than politics, but I've considered that it may be a front. Again, any information the headquarters could provide would be useful. I've done my best to test her and her connections, and so far I've found both to be somewhat lacking. I've also taken it upon myself to investigate the situation in Markarth, where the Justiciar Ondolamar will be receiving this report. As you've no doubt noticed, the Silverbloods control most of the city and the mine. I've managed to sort out the chain of command and vectors of communication and interrupted a few of those lines, primarily in self-defense. The guards have taken notice of my presence. I've managed to escape capture despite their best efforts to catch me upon returning to my contact, who is now deceased. I would request permission to proceed with this situation as I see fit. I understand that the Reach is quite volatile at the moment and must be handled with care, but I feel as though the chaos caused by disorganized Forsworn could be beneficial to our cause. No word yet of the target. The investigation continues, awaiting further orders. By my hand and seal, Inquisitor Hegatha Sidon. All right. That is our narrative. We got an agent type.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, I like it. And I think this is a great setup just because there's so many opportunities here. We've got a character who is... What I like about it is when you're kind of taking this agent approach and you've got this hidden agenda, right? The hidden agenda. It gives all of that endless dialogue all over town brand new meaning. So when you come to Riften, you know, and you get shaken down at the front door, right? Suddenly that can have a very different meaning. You know, the shakedown could be a code for something.
Oh yeah. Right.
You know, it could be, the shakedown could be an effort to pass information or whatever. And
right. Slip something into your pocket.
Exactly.
Whatever.
And then you run into Maul when you walk in, right? And you know, he gives you the whole rundown on Maven Blackbriar and all this stuff. And he offers to give you inside dirt if you need it and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it really sets itself up well for intrigue. I think it's kind of cool.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I like the report style too.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
That's kind of fun.
So it sounds like this character is, what I understood it was an agent of the Thalmor.
Yeah, that's
what you got from that?
That's what I got, which
okay.
is kind of it's not a path well traveled.
No.
Just because it's a difficult, it can be a difficult style of play depending what you want to do with it. And I think for the most part, people in general dislike the Thalmor that much that they're not willing to try to play a high elf Thalmor. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fun to see where the character goes.
Oh, for sure. I'd like to try it myself sometime, playing a Thalmor, like
whether it's a legit Thalmor or a double agent type of Thalmor. There's a number of directions. Now the way the game is built doesn't make playing as a Thalmor faction all that easy.
Yeah.
But you can still do it. You can be a rogue Thalmor, perhaps.
Yeah, you could. The closest I've come is Etienne, and I with him, he wasn't really a Thalmor at all. He was just pressed into service by him.
Right. Yeah, that was begrudging.
So, yeah. Well, let's get some insight here from EJ on how this is going and how she's setting it up. So she says, before sitting down to create Hagatha, I randomized the rest of her traits so that I could get a feel for the type of character I'd be playing. The secondary trait she ended up with was malicious. And the main plot, that the world has been split in half, was easy for me to interpret as relating to the Civil War.
Sure.
From that, I decided to interpret the Season 3 subplot as a plan going awry, rather than a literal baby disappearing.
All right.
Both my main plot and subplot involved an entity going missing, and so I've connected them by deciding that the missing person has or had something to do with the Civil War. I've interpreted the pregnant woman going into labor as First Ambassador Ellenwyn preparing to set a plan in motion, a symbolic labor rather than a literal one.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
That's great.
That's almost like code words, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
the bun is in the oven. The bun the bun is not in the oven. You know?
The bun is missing. The bun is missing. Repeat.
The dough did not rise. Repeat. So
call the baker. Contact the baker.
I love it. Right? It's great. See, that's what this is, right? Like that's why I'm always insistent that don't take the plots and traits at face value. Figure out what you're going to do with them and don't be afraid to be creative. And maybe that stubborn trait doesn't apply until halfway through.
Right.
Or maybe it does. Maybe the plot point, you turn it over on its head and make it a metaphor or something like that, or a secret message or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
all right?
That's fabulous.
But what these things do is they're exercises that get the juices flowing.
Yeah. Yep.
They get you thinking creatively, and that's the point. That's what I like about
exactly.
this.
Exactly.
From the traits stubborn, malicious, and Altmer, it was an easy choice to decide to play a stubbornly loyal Thalmor Inquisitor with a hidden agenda to find the missing cog in Elenwen's plan. From there, I created a few play rules before settling her on her journey, including the objective to infiltrate as many guilds as possible so that her identity is deliberately confusing.
Perfect.
Okay.
And there's our kind of our almost double agent status.
Absolutely. A focus on her establishing a persona so that her status as a Thalmor is less obvious, and the idea that she will always try to find the option that causes the most chaos and hurts the most people.
I love that.
Which is especially difficult for me to play, being a lawful good person that I am.
Okay, yeah. I get that.
Once the game rules were established, Hegatha set off down the road and took up the first lead she could find. In this case, everything that Maul says when you first walk into Riften. This is probably the first time anyone's ever actually listened to Maul, right?
Oh, God.
Not this guy.
Quick, I got to go around the corner.
Side note, the only reason she has yet to complete the Sidna Mine debacle is that she noticed the trap in the Shrine of Talos and immediately turned around. The guards didn't pursue, and she was free to do whatever she wanted with the information she'd gathered. Very smart.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
she gathered the information and got the hell out of there before the trap was sprung.
Right.
All right, cool.
That's...
Well, nice job, EJ. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I love the report style. I love the ideas that have gone into it. And one of the things that strikes me about the way that she's playing this out is this is totally a scenario that anybody playing the vanilla game with no mods could adopt as well.
Oh, yeah, for
There's
sure.
nothing about it that is mod exclusive by any stretch.
Absolutely.
Which is a great thing, too. Because what I like about that, not that I'm against mods and all this playing in vanilla, no, that's not it at all. What I like about it is that in a scenario like this, then think about how you could take something powerful like this and enhance it, turn it on its head, change it even further by introducing mods, especially mods that are specifically targeted at some things you want to pull off. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's very cool.
No, and what it does is it really gives you a solid base to select your mods accordingly.
Yeah.
So, well done.
Well done.
I'm going to give this a try. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try.
Do it.
Wow. No wonder that got 2 thumbs down.
Thanks, YouTube.
All right.
Okay.
I did not level up for that attempt.
It was a good attempt, though.
Well, it was an attempt.
All right. Let's move on to the next one.
All right.
All right. Stopping the recording. Moving ahead. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna do the next one. Okay, and then we're gonna take a short break after that. Then we're gonna come back and do some more. Given the pace that we're on, we're gonna get at least 8 done. Probably more like 10. I think if we stay on this pace, we should be able to get 10 done tonight. That means the last 8 of you who submitted tonight, we're probably not going to be able to get to your submissions until next week, and we'll be doing your next week's homework submission in our reading, okay? Just a heads up. I just want to let you know kind of how the pacing is looking here given our time frame. Okay? All right. Okay, we are recording. I felt like these would be easier to read if we squunch them down like that into a narrow column.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I feel like it's a little easier. So, all right, that's all you, Joe.
All right, so this one is coming from 57 Strudel. The character is Gishma. And I'm just going to say, since Strudel often bemoans having to shorten her text and how difficult it can be, you actually did quite well. This is not nearly as long as I was expecting. All right. So,
nice job. You leveled up already.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Well, this is more like a skill level.
Okay.
This isn't a character level yet.
Yeah, right.
All right. So, the short narrative is from the mind of Gishma. So it's kind of like an internal dialogue. That's how I interpret that.
I love it.
This shack on the lake is perfect. I can work on my alchemy during the day and slip into the city at night to craft jewelry at Balamon's forge, so that nobody will see my handiwork. I can swim and fish and gather ingredients from around the lakeside and train with Viper to become a better pickpocket when I'm not doing any of the other things. Nobody believed me. I don't care what they say. It's going to work. Let me try this. A bit of canis root, some imp stool, and a pinch of mora tapanella. Grind, grind, grind. Grind them all into the mortar. The pestle in my hand swirling them into powder. Add the liquid into the bottle and... how shall I do this? A coating? Inside the ring? Will that be enough? Do I need to craft the ring with special spines? The kind that will erupt and pierce the skin as its wearer grasps the side of the ring to put it on. They would deliver the mixture more directly, straight into the bloodstream, paralyzing the victim for a time and then continuing to damage him for some time beyond that. Would that be enough, though? Yes, that's what I need to do. Can I do it? Do I have the skills to make such a jewel in the Saxleal style? I've been working so hard. Perhaps that Medesi fellow can share some tips with his marsh sister. Ha! I make myself laugh. Gishma is nobody's sister. I do not believe this connection the others speak of even exists. I have never felt such a thing. Still, perhaps I might buy some favor from Medesi for the materials I shall gather for him. Gold, a tusk, sapphires. I need these for my own work as well. It is no hardship. Or perhaps, let me see, once more, imp stool and skeever tail and this odd plant from Solstheim. Skaithcraw? Grind, grind, grind. Oh yes, this will be perfect. Ravage the man's heart to start and then continue a slow, lingering, horrible death. That is what he deserves. But how to deliver it? The necklace. That's how. The ruby necklace. It has worked in the past. That's what I read. The ruby necklace started the plague. Hello, sci-fi. Not sci-fi.
Here?
Yeah. Connaughton flu. The Connaughton flu. That's what I'm going to say it is.
Okay.
The Connaughton flu, back in the Second Era. If one of my kind accomplished that back then, I can do the same now. Surely one ruby necklace will be enough to take down one man. They will see. They will believe me once I've perfected my crafts.
Wow.
So, Gishma has some issues.
She's a sicko.
She's a bit on the revenge. We don't know why quite yet.
She's a bit unhinged, maybe.
A little unhinged. Yeah. She likes to talk to herself.
Yeah.
And anyone around me at work knows that that's okay.
I like this first sentence. Gishma is the deranged drooler.
Deranged drooler. Nice.
No, that's really fascinating. You know what I think is interesting is in this kind of narrative, you get directly inside the character's head, which affords you all kinds of opportunities to do whatever you want.
Well, and yeah, because what that opening, what it does is it gives you kind of that insight to the psychosis of the character.
Yeah.
Without the character really, just by the manner in which they approach or are thinking of things, and it's really just kind of the whole narrative as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, I mean, there's no one specific thing that tells you what direction or who they're talking about, other than they're working on some sort of potion.
Yeah.
And it tells you why they want this potion, but not really.
Yeah. And the deranged part, I mean, it's all over.
Oh,
all
yeah,
over
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
That's
grind, you know, that stuff.
Right.
Like,
oh, yeah, you can kind of picture
that inner monologue.
Yeah,
you know,
as
like,
they work away on the mortar and pestle.
It reminds me of there used to be, when I was younger, there was a comedy show where they did this sketch where there was the weird guy who would hide in the bushes and crush people's heads. Do you remember that?
Crush.
Where he would look at people's heads like through his fingers and he'd say, "I'm crushing your head. Crush, 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 crush." It reminds me of that.
I do.
Right?
I don't know if I remember what that's from, but I do remember
He'd come jumping out of the bushes and, "Hey, crush your head. Crush, crush, crush." So weird. But
oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, though, that kind of crazy level of psychosis. And it'll be fascinating going forward to see how the inner monologues change as the character starts to have more direct interaction with victims or
other people.
You know, other people.
You know, what triggers
whatever.
this blacklisted,
Yeah.
you know, and being, you know, obviously an Argonian. And when you come across Argonians in the game, I mean, you could definitely see them coming to this state of mind. I don't know.
Sure.
There's got to be some kind of cultural aspect that they just see things a little differently in the world. And it doesn't seem to me like any given Argonian is all that far away from batshit crazy. No?
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but it's just those mannerisms.
Somehow they're closer to the ragged edge of sanity than everyone else.
Kind of.
Just by their very nature?
It seems like it. And, you know, maybe it's because they have this connection that no one else really understands. I don't know. Yeah. So...
I love though how she puts here in quotes the deranged jeweler, as if that is a moniker that this character has already earned. Like, you know, how there's, you know,
right,
the assassin who's called, you know, the piano wire strangler, or something like that, right? Like
it's already got
like,
a reputation.
Yeah, and a very specific one.
Right, exactly.
Very specific. That's
so yeah, what you're referring to is the character status. So if we continue, Gishma, the deranged jeweler, is an Argonian with no connection to the Hist, a complete outcast who is also quite insane. Now, is that because they're not connected to the Hist? Or
I don't know.
Because they're just off.
Maybe we'll find that out.
Yeah, so there's some intrigue there. She has no ability to understand symbolic language or nuances of meaning. When she read the book The Ruby Necklace, she took it quite literally and decided that it meant that jewelry could be weaponized. Which is actually kind of funny because it kind of can be.
Yeah.
And if she's fantastic. A good enough alchemist, for sure.
Weaponized. Okay.
It's weaponized.
Bring on. I'm having fun.
I love it. Her secret objective is to assassinate someone. Who that is remains secret, even to me, as the...
At this point.
At this point, that being Strudel herself. So we're going to kind of see where the game takes us, it sounds like. So that's good. Gishma is currently level 20. All right, wow. You've been playing. Mm-hmm. Cool. Those levels having been gained purely through the pursuit of skills in alchemy, smithing, and pickpocketing. Cool. Yeah, those are all actually really good skills that will level an early character quickly.
Serve you well.
She's joined the Thieves Guild to get access to Viper, the fleet. Has been through Bleak Falls Barrow to purchase alchemy training from Arcadia and Whiterun, and has learned that she can read dragon walls. She has yet to see a dragon, however.
Okay.
Cool. Let's see. Going on. What I did and how I did it. Okay, so some of the gameplay aspects. Understanding Argonian lore is shallow at best. I don't think anyone can begrudge you of that. Making an individual without a connection to the Hist is a good idea. So allowing me to learn as you play, that's really
that is actually a really good idea.
That's a
so
good
you could
way to
kind of play off that lack of lore knowledge as both player and character.
Yeah, so you're both bringing it in as it comes.
I love that.
That's really good. The Tales of Connaughton Flew caught my... I don't know where that particular tale comes from.
It must be in the lore somewhere, right?
Yeah, it must be. I'd have to look it up. So, which is partly why I stumbled so badly over the word. Mm-hmm. A particular notion of Argonian poisoners, where its source and that it was possibly transmitted through contact. Okay, so this is all kind of revolving around that flu. So that's kind of a character player intrigue or point. Yeah. So that's cool. Develop the idea of a crazed woman with skills in what Madesi calls traditional Saxhleel style. I love bringing the Saxhleel aspect of it. And Argonian poisoners and alchemists are kind of a natural.
Yep.
So I think these were all great
I can't
choices.
Tell you the number of times that I've taken a deep dive into lore and just seized on some little minute thing and was able to build something much larger around it.
Yeah, that's a great way to go. It really is.
For sure. So the last paragraph, she's kind of talking about how she approaches this whole idea of weaponized jewelry.
Since there's really no weapon jewelry per se. Jewelry is, I guess, weaponized in more of an indirect way, in that they can enhance or assist in some way.
Yeah, they could assist you in doing maybe more damage with a spell, for example, or something, but they aren't exactly set to
the only
harm directly.
Weaponization directly would be some kind of cursed type of item or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm off the top of my head not aware of any kind of mod that introduces cursed items
Yeah.
like that. But something to keep an eye out for, and keep pinging the Discord and everyone else. So
Yep. Yep.
that's the power of the group think.
Yep. Exactly.
Elected to gain pickpocketing perk from Ordinator that provides the ability to plant poisons as well as other objects on the target in order to simulate her fixation on weaponized jewelry. Okay, so kind of taking a mechanic to support your
Yep.
your gameplay.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep. And I'm assuming that she's poured over the pickpocketing options thoroughly. One of the things that you can do in there, which I have been working on with Okan, of course, is the whole, I forget what it's called, the Dead Emperor coin or whatever.
Yeah.
You can acquire that coin.
Yep.
If you plant that on a target first and then plant your poisons, it increases your poison damage. Stuff like that. She's on the right track here as far as how to make this work.
Right, right.
And what I love about this is how you could tie the way that you take a person out. Like, she's got a built-in ego signature, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Everybody that she kills is going to have a fancy piece of jewelry on them made in the Sax Leal style.
It's going to have a Sax Leal ruby necklace or some kind of ring that has little prongs inside.
And what I like about it is you could manufacture this jewelry in such a way that the gemstones that you choose to use in them are significant in some way, either symbolic of how the person is going to die by what sort of poison, or the jewels could also be some symbol of her hatred for the person. You know, like red being the most intense, or a ruby being the most intense, or whatever the most expensive gem is. Like, those people she's really got it in for. Get the most expensive, finest gems. Like all that stuff.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you can kind of justify that from that that insanity perspective where if the higher the value, the more potent it must be.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. You could do that, which I love. I love that whole idea. And then I was just thinking too, like, think about this. It's a way of reinforcing how batshit crazy she might be or could become, right?
Right.
The idea that she would invest hundreds, maybe thousands of septums in the crafting of one necklace she's going to use to kill someone and never take back again.
Right.
And the idea that how does that impact her, and then could it potentially impact her going forward? What if Madesi or someone else at some point starts to become suspicious and starts spreading rumors that her jewelry is killing people? Like, she wouldn't be able to sell legit jewelry to make money. She could be absolutely destitute, scraping around to try and make enough money to create this jewelry she's obsessed with making.
Which would support any kind of thieving, assassinations, bandit raids, anything to gain income to support the need for high quality death jewelry.
Yeah. Wow.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
That's fun.
I like it. Gishma, the deranged jeweler. And if we take a look at this, we've talked about 4 different pieces of homework, 4 very different characters, 4 completely different interpretations of events, and 4 completely different ways of crafting narrative. Completely different. One was kind of a background story. Mm-hmm. One was dialogue. One was a report. One was an inner monologue.
Right.
We've got a ton of variety here. You guys are hitting it out of the park. And
absolutely,
it's time for us to take a break.
I think so.
All right. We are going to take a short break, ladies and gentlemen. And we will be back for the second half of listener homework. Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay. That is paused.
All right, I found a much better level. So far, everyone. Well done. We'll be back.
They also get the floor squeaking.
Yeah.
We're a hokey outfit. Levels are about right, though. All right, we are returning here. Just give us a moment. Unless you're not ready to.
Big mouthful of peanut butter.
What? Nothing wrong with that. We hath returneth it.
Sort of.
Sort of, yes.
Is that locked up or is that a preview?
It's a preview.
Oh, okay.
It's locked.
Gotcha.
Yep. If you come down here, you see
My arm.
more of a live thing.
All right.
Your
No,
sandwich.
Your arm. My sandwich.
My arm. Your sandwich.
Stu has a new toy.
Yeah, I do. All right. So, let's go ahead and start recording. On the off chance that we say anything really smart.
It hasn't happened quite yet. I don't.
No. We do very little that is smart or of consequence here. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, how is everyone out there? Sandwich. That is the word.
Yeah. Peanut butter sandwich at that.
Sandwich. Ladies and
Every good vocal coach would tell you you should have immediately before recording
Uh-huh.
a peanut butter sandwich
Yes,
with
that's
lots of milk.
what they all say.
Of course, I wouldn't know. I've never spoken to a vocal coach, so
Yeah.
Matt has.
He has.
He could tell me, and I'm sure he would concur. Peanut
Yeah.
butter is the best thing to have before recording.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We would like to thank you for joining us this evening. But we would also like to thank our sponsors, Lost Barrow Brewing, who have provided us with bottles of their latest, greatest seasonal brew, Ale of the Pale, which we
Nice.
will be drinking live on the episode tonight. So are you ready to crack these open, Joe?
I've been looking forward to it for like a week now.
I've been looking forward to it for over a month.
Well, it's not a lager, at least.
No, that would take much longer. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Break the seal.
Nice.
All right.
Good start.
Yep.
It's a fine month.
It's very malty.
Maltese?
Yes.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
I think yours is better than mine. Mine didn't pop as heartily as yours. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that pour.
Nice.
All right. Straight from Lost Barrow Brewing comes Ale of the Pale, a crisp winter ale straight from my closet. Okay.
I mean, bandit caves.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Ah, yes, the seal of approval. If Joe says it's good, then it's good.
It's actually really mild.
It is.
It doesn't have
Right.
a real hard bite. It's not super malty. It's not overly malty, so it's not super sweet. But it's not bitter at all either.
No.
It's kind of a real nice.
It has no bitter
Balance.
afterlife.
No, well, I mean that's
Literally.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the point.
and they live up to it.
Right.
There is no bitter afterlife here.
Yep. Thank you to Lost Barrow Brewing for providing us with only the best in ancient spirits. you will.
Ooh, distilling. Lost Barrel expansion into maybe some whiskey, bourbon, gin?
Oh, yeah, that could be.
Lost Barrel gin?
I have a hard time believing
Junipers from...
Yeah.
from the Reach?
From you-know-who. Yeah. I have a hard time believing that with all the time they have in their hands, that Draugr would stop at just making an ale or a lager. I would think they would try some other things. Although
they are Nords, I mean...
They are well, they are ancient Nords.
True.
And their advertisements, they do spend a lot of time dissing mead. So they probably haven't ventured into that.
No, that doesn't seem like something in their forte.
Yeah. I could definitely see some kind of a Nordic whiskey, though.
Something to keep you warm on those cold days and nights.
All right.
Lost Barrel Bourbon.
Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Lost Barrel Bourbon?
Ooh.
Damn. All right, let's get on with it, shall we?
It's an Atmora straight.
Yeah. All right, let me cue up.
So all of this carbonation just comes from the process.
Yep. So
wow, it's perfect.
Yeah, it is. It is. When I brewed it, so when I first brewed it, it's made with 3 different kinds of hops. Obviously, a lot of malt, and grains. So initially it was steeping the grains, and then after I'd steeped the grains, I brought those to a boil, and I added hops at different points till at the very end. The last thing you add is an aroma hop, right?
Okay. Yep.
Once that's done, everything was filtered and dumped into a jug, and then the yeast grabs onto the sugars that are coming out of the hops and grains.
Right.
And it does its thing with that for like 2 weeks.
Right.
But once that was done, then I had to make kind of a light sugared solution. So it was like a couple of cups of water and a couple of tablespoons of sugar. It doesn't take a lot.
Real light.
Yeah. So you boil that and you kind of make a really watery, simple syrup from it. And then you take all of that beer and you dump it in and mix it up with that sugar water. And then you immediately bottle it and seal them shut. And the yeast reactivates when it hits that sugar.
Okay, so
and it creates a natural carbonation.
The first time around, they're pretty much creating the alcohol content.
Yeah.
And the second time around, it's the fizz.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
And that is something that's unique to the home brewing process if you're bottling. If you're actually putting it in kegs, then you force carbonate it, which is a different process.
Right, that's where the CO2
That's where the
containers
CO2
come
comes
from
in,
and all.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, pretty
Nice.
amazing. Yep.
Nice.
So that's why when you're bottling it and you're doing it this way, you can't, like if you're force carbonating, you can go straight to drinking right away.
Right, because you're going to mix it as it comes.
Yeah, exactly. That's why this way, everything is being individually carbonated on a per bottle basis. So you gotta bottle it and then you gotta wait for a couple more weeks while it does its thing.
Sure.
But that's where you get the pressure in the bottle and the nice pop when you open it, and the fizz and all that.
Makes sense.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, these pop tops are the best.
Yeah. So we'll wash them and reuse them again.
Yeah, and they're fun to use.
That's right. All right.
Well done. So, what are we on to next?
We are on to homework submission by Vincent Keith.
All right.
The character's name is Torvald. Torvald narrative. Okay. So, character traits. Honorable, honest, and a bit too proud.
All right.
As time passes, his desperation grows, and consequently, he stubbornly refuses to get involved in things that do not appear to advance his cause. Saving the village. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He feels bad when he walks away from someone in need and chastises himself for wasting time on the rare occasion when he gives in. That's a lot of turmoil and ups and downs that are going, and ups and downs that are going to be wild. There's not much joy in Torvald's future.
All right, he's a torn soul.
Yep. All right, subplot. Solvi's baby disappears just as it's about to be born. The other pregnant women in town wake to find themselves with flat bellies, where once there had been growing life. The village wise man feels confident it's the curse and asks Torval to seek help in Bruma.
Oh, nice start.
Very nice. Backstory. Village hunter Forrester uses a bow and an axe, skilled in stealth and archery from hunting. Torvald's father is a soldier in the Imperial Army and was raised to be honorable, bound by duty to his emperor, his unit, and his family. His father passes these traits on and raises Torvald to be honest, honorable, and devout at an early age. His older sister, Solvi, and her husband were about to have a baby when a curse falls on the village. The wise woman thinks it's a curse and becomes convinced when they discover Solvi is not alone. Torvald travels Bruma seeking help from the Mages Guild, and the master agrees to help, provided that he can bring back a golden dragon claw marked with these symbols, and a coral dragon claw similarly marked. The conversation leaves Torvald with more questions than he arrived with, so he travels to the Imperial City to see if he can get clarification. He moves from guild house to guild house. Each time, the master of the house agrees to help only if Torvald can find 2 dragon claws, and he must take an oath of silence. Each mage asks for different claws, but the descriptions are virtually identical, differing only in material, and none of the mages is sure what symbols will be engraved. But it's always 3. It's all too strange to be a coincidence. Do they know what the others are asking for? Is someone else behind these requests, keeping each individual master in the dark? I'm not sure if Torvald hates the Thalmor, or if it's just me. He's in for a few surprises before the end of his quest. It becomes clear the Altmer are being deliberately obstructive. He can't be sure, but he suspects that the mages who have given him the task to perform have no idea what purpose those claws serve, but have merely been told to find them. Torvald suspects the Altmer are the ones who are really looking for the claws, but why? His only advantage is that the mages think he doesn't understand their subtle jibes and innuendo, nor do they believe he understands their commands about the kind of power required to perform such a curse and who might actually be able to do such a thing. He agrees to their outlandish terms, but he doesn't trust that they'll find the source of the curse, let alone know how to lift it. In truth, he suspects they all believe it was the Thalmor, with the intent of eliminating the Nords as a race. None would come out and say it, but their furtive glances and muttered musings make their beliefs clear enough. All right. Yeah, that pride thing, that'll really mess with your head. He really hates being treated like a worm, and that's pretty much how the Thalmor look at the Nords, except worms are useful. Pride and desperation can lead to some interesting rationalization, and he's going to rationalize them right into the grave. Story arc. The problem is introduced at the very beginning, even before we pick up with our hero, as he ventures forth in search of the truth that he hopes and prays will return the children to their rightful homes. Plot. Torvald seeks a cure for the curse on his village, only to learn the curse may be across Skyrim. He hunts for the mythical dragon claws, which at present are his only lead. First suspecting the mages, then the Thalmor, and finally the dragons. Hidden agenda. Prove that the Thalmor are behind the curse and eliminate them whenever possible. Okay. So, how are we reading so far?
So it's kind of really intriguing.
It is really intriguing. And it sets up some pretty epic adventuring if you're going to find all those claws.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That's going to take you everywhere.
That was the first thing I noticed was a really interesting way to incorporate those dragon priest quests.
Yep.
And to find those claws. I thought that was really brilliant. And I kind of like, too, that there's, because there are always 3 symbols on a claw. But, I mean, typically if you look through, a lot of different religions, 3 is kind of a magical number. There's just a lot that revolves around 3. So it's cool to kind of bring that aspect of mystery of that number. Even though it's just something that the game presents. I mean, there's nothing special insofar as the game is concerned. But you can make it into something if you really wanted to. And the fact that, they all have symbols on them, and you don't know what they are until you grab them, and then now you can interpret, well, what does that mean? So really the game is kind of rolling you your own set of story cubes.
It kind of is.
in the guise of a claw.
Yeah.
So
really
you got
like
the claw, you got the material, you've got the scenes. What does it mean?
Yeah.
And is Torvald going to bring back the claw?
Yeah.
I mean, these are all great little seeds of intrigue and play.
Yeah.
A lot of fun to be had here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, it's there's a whole bunch of intrigues here that you could play on at any point. And I think there's a lot of different ways that you could approach a challenge like this. One of them is that you could take a very focused approach, but the other is that you could cast a fairly wide net, and then you could see where the story takes you within that structure.
Yeah. It definitely lends itself to being open to all sorts of influence.
It does. I mean, it's possible in this scenario that you could find the first claw, and that could steer you down a completely different path, and it ends up being only one claw that's of consequence.
Right.
Or you could take the approach that suddenly now you're trying to find multiple claws, but what's really important is not the claws themselves, but the symbols that they have in common.
Right. Because
they're
likely going to have, at least a few of them will have something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be kind of really unique to see, okay, moth. Yeah, okay, these 2 have moths, and these 3 have bears or whatever. Whatever you want to do. So you can even take that further if you really want. I mean, if you're got a real conspiracy, almost kind of a real out of the box type of mind.
Right.
You could take these symbols and try to relate what the dragon priests were like, and see if there's any dots that you connect from dragon priest to dragon priest based on the symbols of the related claws.
Yeah. No, I think that's really fascinating. And then when you start digging into the lore about how these specific animals were symbolic to the ancient Nords and what those animals meant, and all that kind of stuff, you could start to pull in all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah, and wherever there's a little bit of vagueness, fill it in.
I agree.
That's awesome.
That's what it's all about.
I had to kind of chuckle to myself when you were kind of reading through because my first thought was Torvald. What a great Nord name, but it sounds like an imperial. The imperial father and all that. So, but when you got to the whole pride and honor and all that, the first thing that popped in my head was the old movie Mulan. It was Mulan's father.
Yeah.
Very proud warrior, fights for state and country, family as an honor, and it has that very kind of imperial Japanese set to it, I guess, for lack of a better term.
It kind of does. And the other thing too is, I believe, isn't there a cave location in Skyrim called Torvald's Shame, where you go in and
sounds familiar.
You get ambushed by Falmer, and it leads into a long slog through Falmer infested stuff, and it is I want to believe it's one of these places where you go where you find it's a deep cavern with a whole bunch of Dunmer inside it who were hauling a cart full of books. There's like bunches and bunches of books down there, and that's where you find like the sermons of Vivek and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of fascinating. Let's continue reading here. I want to read the rest of his submission, because he gets down here to his circles of character conflict.
All right, cool.
Now, there is some additional narrative in here, but we don't really have time to read it all, so I want to skip to the circles, okay?
All right.
So, personal. Raised to be honest and honorable, Torvald is desperate to help his sister recover her lost baby. So Torvald travels to Cyrodiil to seek help from the mages. Desperate, he finds himself willing to do things he would never have considered before. The idea of stealing eats at him, but nothing will stop him. He will attempt to avoid becoming embroiled in the civil war, and will even try to avoid dealing with the dragons, though both of those things eat away at his sense of honor and duty. All right. So, on the personal side of things, we got a guy who has this high sense of honor and duty, but is continually faced with a situation where he has to break his oaths to himself in order for the greater good.
For the greater good.
God dang that greater good.
World's End. Look it up.
Yeah.
The greater good.
So, interpersonal. Proud and honorable, will not take jobs on the shady side unless there's no other way to move forward in his quest. He will not give in to thieves. He does not brook insults. Every time he gets into a fight to defend his honor, he will become depressed, knowing that his personal pride is putting the future of his village and perhaps the entire Nord race at risk. Eventually, he realizes he needs help. Too many of the claws demanded as payment for helping his village are beyond his reach, and seeks help from a shady character that he would not normally countenance.
Oh, okay. Cool.
All right, so this is a guy who's almost imprisoned by his sense of honor in a way. He's constantly in turmoil over the things he's going to have to do. It's great. I love it. Having taken offense at his treatment by the mages, he can barely tolerate them and views them all with a jaundiced eye. He wants nothing to do with the civil war and is angry with the Stormcloaks for forcing the Empire to action. He's angry with the Empire for their cowardly capitulation to the Thalmor, and he despises the Thalmor for their arrogance and needless aggression against the Empire. Basically, he wants the curse lifted from his village, and everyone else can go to oblivion. Over time, it tends to make him short-tempered and a bit volatile. That was kind of his social interaction. So
right.
He's got problems with a lot of different factions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, yeah, and what I like is that there's a reason. He's reasoned why the character has all this angst towards all these different peoples. He's justified it really well in the character. And to your point earlier, Torvald's cave it's in the rift.
Is it?
It's just a slightly variation of spelling with an A instead of an O.
Oh, okay.
Torvald instead of Torvald.
Okay.
So,
yeah, interesting.
But it could still be worked in.
Sure, why not? Well, Mr. Vincent Keith, for your character Torvald and your homework submission, sir, you have leveled up. Congratulations.
Well done. That's fabulous.
That was.
I love the inner turmoil of the character.
Me too.
And I think it'll be fun to see how it gets resolved. Because that's the fun part. That's the whole play of the character, resolving that inner, coming to peace with oneself.
Yeah.
At least for me, when I have characters like that, the fun of the character is how do you resolve that?
Yeah,
and become peace with yourself.
Fertile ground for storytelling, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
That'll be fun.
So,
especially when you get to the second act, when it's like at its pinnacle of ugliness.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so that's what's fascinating about this whole exercise is we're getting to dig a little deeper into these different characters and stuff like that, but it's going to be fun to watch how they come to life once we start to understand more about who their enemies are and stuff too, and we start having those conversations. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's move on to the next one.
All right. Excuse me.
All right, I have stopped and restarted the recording. We are on to submission number 6.
All right.
All right, is that okay, Joe, or do you want me to make the text bigger? Here's a sense for how much content we've got here. This is pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. No, that should be fine.
All right.
Just gotta find the right.
Your glasses? I know it's killing me. Like I'm really dying here. Like my shoulder is so sore right now. I'm constantly moving and trying to prop it up in different ways. It's killing me.
Stu slept funny.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know what it was. I'm wondering. I'm actually wondering if what it is something to do with the ergonomics of my live streaming setup.
Oh, you think so?
I think my live stream last night might have done it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
or all that
messed up, man.
Crime fighting that you're doing at night.
Well, there's that too. Last night I jumped off the roof and landed funny.
Ooh, parkour.
Yeah, it's rough.
All right. Our next submission is from Vic with the character Hamlau Gro Atma. That sounds kind of orcish, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
All right. Hamlau came of age in the time of the Dragonborn, but he did not care. The herd... excuse me. Jeez.
Cut that here, Joe.
I'm going to have some editing to do.
Yeah.
You know, that really doesn't help me at all.
No. Okay. Sorry, Jesus.
All right, we'll start this over. Sorry, Vic. Hamlaug came of age in the time of the Dragonborn, but he did not care. He heard all the stories and legends, and they meant nothing to him. He knew the truth about his people, and he meant to set out and prove it. His mother, Atma, left the day he was born, or so Merble told him. He saw the lie in the adopted mother's eyes, but he loved her deeply and could not bring himself to challenge the story. The truths that Hamlaug knew from a very young age were those of the Vashrak, the secretive clan of true believers in Trinimac. What reason could there be for his tawny golden hair, for his reddish skin with its faint greenish birthmarks and freckles? What else did he feel? Why else did he feel the power of a righteous God flowing through his veins? He knew he shared these things with his birth mother because Merble had told him. She too was of the Vashrak, though not even her son, Berguk, the very chieftain of the Dushnik Yal stronghold, knew. Hamlaug guessed that Atma knew nothing of Vashrak, and that Merble had somehow convinced her to leave, while never explaining anything. On the last day of Sun's Dusk, 4th Era, 2001, Alordas, Hamlaug looked to the Drudak Mountains. At the setting moons, he turned his back, faced east, and knew it was time to explore the world. He walked across the stronghold toward the gate. Merble gazed at the figure striding across the practice ground, large even for an orc, and striking in his uniqueness. He wore little in the way of armor. His skin was a patchwork of greens and reds. He wore his red gold hair in a top knot, and trimmed his beard carefully. Such an odd child to become such a powerful orc, she thought, as she hurried to catch him. He has no idea of what lies in store. Do you have the things I left for you? I knew you would be leaving today. Hamlaug gazed down at her. Yes, wise one, I have them. I will find her, but I will not tell her yet. I remember what you taught me. Thank you. Oop. Scroll, 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 scroll.
Grind, grind,
Grind, grind, grind. Hamlaug gazed down at her. I already read that. Do not thank me, Hamlaug. I am but a cog in the wheel. You have your own role to play in this, and I am always here for you if you need me. Remember that Gorbash will be here also if you need him. He is one of us. I know, Mother. He and I have not always been friends, but I will come for him if the time is right. Merble nodded. Without another word, she turned and walked stiffly toward her crafting tables. Hamlaug looked after her and whispered, I love you, though you would hit me if you heard. He did not see Merble shake the tear. He did not see Merble shake the tear from her cheek as he swung the gate and stepped through. So that is our opening.
Wow.
So a nice kind of a coming of age and out to find the truth. Kind of setting, the adopted son, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say too, I like the style of this narrative, and it's just really, really nice writing.
It is. Agreed.
You know?
Honestly, I think that's kind of a strength of everything we've seen so far is it's all been presented really well.
Yeah, it has. Everything's been different.
Even if we've botched it in the reading.
Oh yeah, I mean we're coming in.
We're
cold.
coming in
That's
cold. We're cold reading. So.
And we're also we're down a man tonight too, which makes it I think a little more difficult. But no,
that being
it's
said,
been really great.
Yeah,
really great. And you know, I really like the decision that we made to have 2-part homework submissions, one being on the narrative and one being on the mechanical.
Right.
What is the character doing? What is the player doing?
Right. So this this introduction of the story, the narrative, sets up a really nice, a starting point. Obviously, from one of the strongholds that we all know. At least those that have played the game once or twice. He's brought in characters. It's always fun when you can bring in an in-game character as part of your story and give that character a little more life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's another one of those that to me, well, it gives you some understanding of the reason for the start. What I think is nice about this is it sort of captures that moment of the call to action.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It perfectly captures what we talked about in the first half of the podcast.
Yeah, and you know what?
The ordinary life, the call to action.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to discover kind of what is set that off beyond what the narrative has given us so far and where he's heading out to. So
yeah, it's very cool, and we've got a variety of characters now too, like race types and stuff too. Where they're kind of all over the map, right?
Yeah, which is great.
Which is cool. I love the variety.
Yep.
Okay.
So
what do we got?
Look at our character status. Hamlaug is the son of Atma, the season 2 unfinished character. Oh, okay. So it's combining our different seasons.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Nice take. He was raised at Dushnikyal by the wise woman Merble. They are members of a little-known and secretive sect of orcs called Vashrak. And R-A-K-H, so however you pronounce that in your head, that's how I'm pronouncing it. Vashrak.
Yeah, let's always do it that way, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to wash that pop filter.
They believe that Malakath does not exist in any real form, but is only a twisted reflection of the discredited hero god Trinimac. Oh, I like that take.
Okay, hang on. Does not exist in real form, but is only a twisted reflection. Okay. I'm taking back on the lore, and I'm pretty sure that, I mean, that is what happens, isn't it? Trinimac becomes or is made into Malakath.
Yeah, well...
But what do they mean by reflection, necessarily? What is that?
I think the way I read this is that transformation never truly or fully occurred.
Or that the lore is wrong and that Malakath is... Trinimac did not become Malakath, but that Malakath is some other twisted creature built in the image of Trinimac.
Yeah, something like that.
So
I have to confess that, yeah, I'm not real versed on that particular lore, but I do like that spin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They also believe that Trinimac will return in some form, reclaiming his rightful place as the Golden Warrior and restoring the Orc race traits, the Orc race toits Aldmeric glory. I think there might be a
race to its.
Oh, okay. There's
Orc race to its Aldmeric glory.
Thank you. Okay, cool. The aspects of Malakath will fade, but be honored as the caretaker of the orcs in their time of exile and the creator of a great living code.
Let's get deep.
Yeah. So it's really...
I maybe should have held off on drinking another beer until after this one.
Or maybe you should have had a little more.
Yeah,
before
or
this
maybe
one.
Something else.
Opened up those floodgates a little bit. No, I love taking these kind of religious theories and situations and kind of turning them on their head and twisting them around, looking at them from different aspects, because it can be so interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of what I'm following here is that the belief that Malakath is who Malakath is now is not true. That it's, Trinimac is still who that god is.
Yeah.
And has not transformed, but will do so at one point and restore the orc race to its former glory.
Right.
Because as we, all of the, I'd have to look up the specific orc lore, but I mean, they're a division, they're a split.
Yeah.
Of elf.
Yeah.
Like all the elves, really, but...
Right. And so I think that, according to the lore, Trinimac is turned into Malakath. He's twisted into this Malakath. And that's when the orc race is split off from the elves and becomes this twisted thing along with him. And that this is, I think, done by Boethia.
Yes. Yeah, Boethia is definitely involved.
So, okay, cool.
So yeah, that the Trinimac will come back, restore orc to their former glory, and that the ideas of Malakath will fade, but be honored as kind of that interim caretaker of the orc.
Yeah. Okay.
Very cool. I like it.
So there's a few high points here about the plot and about the character traits. Let's hit maybe some of those high points and then the hidden agenda to see what his plans are here.
Okay, so let's see, blah, blah, blah. The stubborn trait fits perfectly in Hamlaug's story. I chose Dauntless to go with it because it too seemed to fit Hamlaug well. So he is stubborn and dauntless. So he's pretty, once he gets an idea stuck in his head, it's not going away anytime soon.
Extra stubborn.
Extra stubborn.
I like it. Okay.
That's really good. He will be a force to be reckoned with, as should any protagonist, true enough. I chose the door to another world is found by a young boy only to be locked days later by a mysterious thief as my plot idea. However, I will not go into how I intend to fit that into my story right now. All right, so we have a really interesting kind of story, sideline story to dovetail with our subplot.
All right, cool.
Very nice. I'm going to let the story play out naturally as possible. He'll have a journal, nice. But being young and impetuous, he won't write in it often. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I intend to take Hamlaug into the Thieves Guild fairly early. He will also be getting involved in the Dark Brotherhood at some point. Dragons will be in the world, and Hamlaug may learn their language, but he will not be dragonborn. Hamlaug will use magic and alchemy sparingly. Okay. Hidden agenda. Let's look at that a little bit. The hidden agenda is the orc heritage that I first outlined with Atma and have fleshed out a bit here. I'm really looking forward to finding a way to bring this into Skyrim game universe through serendipitous encounters, mods, and other gameplay mechanics. Anyone interested in the lore of the Vashrak and the ambiguous role of Trinimac should search up the wikis. Good advice. Sure. And the fan sites. There's a ton of good stuff out there. There's not a huge amount of stuff, but there's a ton of good stuff in general. Let me just clarify my statement.
Thanks for that clarification.
Backpedal. Grind. But there is a lot of wonderful little tidbits, which I think you spoke of earlier. Is you find that one little thing and just somehow it speaks to you and you go.
You latch on. Don't let go.
One of those things I'd really like to explore is the legend of Trinimac as a mortal elf warrior who rose to godhood. Very cool. I think Hamlaug will be investigating Talos.
Yeah. Very cool. I like it. I see a ton of potential in this. And it's something, just the image of starting out the story with the guy with an idea, throwing a bag over his shoulder and walking out the door.
Yeah.
And he walks off into the sunset. Okay, now the adventure's beginning, right?
I
love that.
I know there's something out there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, this is cool. We've got through another one here. We've got about 30 minutes left in the stream. So let's tackle another one. Now, that was number 6, right? So.
Sure. I haven't been keeping count.
All right. Let's restart here. I'd like to restart this here recording. Now I got to count up from the bottom. Okay. All right, we are on to submission number 7, ladies and gentlemen. This one comes from the Faded Andy. Thank you, Faded Andy. Boderun Bearclaw. Boderun Bearclaw is the name of the character.
Ear.
Boderun.
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 Yes.
That's what I said.
Yes, Broderbund.
Broderbund. Maker of Mist.
Maker of Mist.
Or publisher of Mist.
Publisher,
Cyan.
Yes. Cyan made it, correct.
Get your Mist lore correct, Steve.
Damn it!
Yeah. Okay, now this is an extensive submission, so I may have to paraphrase some things, Andy. So let's dig in here. Okay. As I lay here dying, my mind wanders back to what she told me, her story. My name is Tom.
I would say Ilvius.
Ilvius.
That's probably a capital
Ilvius
I and an L.
Severin. And I leave this note as my dying words and as a warning to the people of Skyrim. I met her in Raven Rock. Despite her young age, she was obviously acutely aware of everything going on around her, any sharp noise drawing her attention, shying away from any potential altercation. I tried to make conversation with her, but she didn't seem to enjoy the company. I tried questioning where she was from. Her response was, "It only matters if you can help me off this island." An opportunity had presented itself. She was clearly trying to flee her circumstances, much like myself. My family has a dark secret that I cannot be part of anymore. I suggested to her that we book passage out of Solstein and to the mainland of Skyrim. So the day after we sailed to Whiterun.
Windhelm.
That's what I said. Whitehelm.
Windrun.
Windrunner. Yes. Okay. When the boat... Okay. When we were on the boat, she started to converse more. She told me her name. Boderun Bearclaw. It's her name or his? Or whose name?
She told me her name, Boderun Bearclaw.
Okay. At least that's what the Skull had called her before they banished her. I tried to press further, but she closed up once again. We made the rest of the journey in silence. Upon arriving in Windhelm, we were met with jeers from some of the local Nords. They don't take too kindly to outsiders here, it seems. Boderun suggested we head south toward Falkreath. She told me that she had a cousin who had been wandering Skyrim and had told her in a letter that he was planning on settling there for a while and that she could stay with him. His name was Sidvar, or Shinding. One of those kind of Nord names. Oh, okay, so he's trying to remember it.
Right.
He's trying to recall it from memory.
Right.
He's kind of messing up the thing. So we gathered some supplies and started our journey. She was insistent that we didn't stop in any of the major cities along the way. After the approach to Whiterun, Boderun suggested that we head round the mountains that line Lake Ilinalta's northern shore. She seemed on edge, more so than usual. Turns out that we were being tracked by a Bosmeri hunter who was using familiars to track us. She set up an ambush point to prevent him from tailing us. After about 3 hours of waiting, a Bosmer on a horse appeared in the distance. Boderun knocked and loosed an arrow at the hunter's horse and then ran at the downed hunter and drew her hatchet on him. He didn't resist. Boderun held the hatchet to his throat, then demanded he hand over the staff that he was carrying and that was clearly being used to summon the familiars. After the encounter, she opened up to me and told me her full story. Before she met me, she was a hunter for the Skull and had been tasked to track down a werebear that was close to her village. One night she went out and thought she got the drop on him, but was quickly overrun as there were more than just one. She told me of how she fought against 4 of the beasts. She won the fight, but not without being bitten. She was a werebear herself. She was terrified of her transformations and hurting people. She told me of how the Skull banished her for bringing this curse into their village. Sinding.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sinding's in Falkreath. Sinding's a werewolf.
Where?
A wolf, a werewolf.
A werewolf.
You heard me.
From a Falkreath?
From a Falkreath, from afar, a werewolf is.
You're talking about the same thing? The
Okay,
werebear?
okay, we're fucking this up.
we kind of are.
Let's stop fucking this up.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
We continued our journey until we happened upon a group of Stormcloaks. They jeered at us just like what happened in Windhelm. We tried to ignore them as long as possible, but Bodarun was clearly getting more and more agitated. She turned around, growling at the leader to leave us alone, and that he'd regret it. Racist soldiers don't take kindly to being threatened, apparently, and drew their weapons on us. We were vastly outnumbered, 12 to 2, and I never learned how to fight. Bodarun had a tight grip on her hatchet and shield and was ready to spring into action. One of the soldiers loosed an arrow, and Bodarun blocked as she yelled for me to run. It was no good. I hadn't taken more than 5 steps before I felt a sharp pain shoot up my spine. An arrow had found me, and I collapsed. As I fell, I turned over and saw Bodarun had already taken down 2 Stormcloaks, but she was struggling to defend against all of them. She glanced over at me and let out a blood-curdling no. The Stormcloaks took a moment to boast. That was a mistake. Bodarun dropped her weapon, and her breathing turned into a low growling. Her eyes changed to a deep blue, from a deep blue to a vibrant yellow. Her hands started shaking as claws began to protrude from her fingertips. She was transforming. Moments later, she was towering over the Stormcloaks. She took down 6 more easily. The remaining 4 managed to corner her on a rock overlooking the lake. She raised a paw to strike, but an arrow found its way to her chest and made her stumble backwards off the rock and fall into the lake. I write this letter to warn you all that the Stormcloaks are not a force for good. They murdered 2 innocent people in cold blood, and I use my dying words to say so. Okay. So this is an interesting shift in perspective.
Yeah, it's from the point of view of a companion.
Yes, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, I like it.
My character is Bodarun Bearclaw, a female Nord werebear originating from Solstein. I used the Moonlight Tales mod to change the werewolf model to a werebear.
Awesome.
And give random transformations each night. Wow.
That's a great mod, by the way.
It is. Yeah. Unbound dropped me in Riverwood, on the edge of the river which flows down from Lake Ilinalta, which is what inspired the backstory. Why she was out on the edge of Riverwood and not interacting with anyone. Okay. She started off with a staff of the familiar, an iron dagger, and fur armor.
Very nice. Excellent
all right.
way to incorporate
so yeah,
all
we
that.
see the lead up, right?
Yeah.
You're building a story that incorporates the items that you got randomly from your starter mod, which is cool as hell. The other plot point, well, let's see. The characteristic that I rolled besides stubborn was selfish. I'm using this as a way to role play her lonely nature and how she tends to be stubborn and selfish to keep people away from her and out of danger. And how... The plot point I rolled myself was an automaton falls in love with its creator and its maker, but its maker tries to destroy it. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. I plan to use this in some way to include the Lost to the Ages quest line and get the Ethereum staff. However, I haven't quite decided how to figure it into the story. Right. The other plot point, a pregnant woman goes into labor only to find that the baby has completely disappeared. I decided to roleplay as a metaphor for the Dark Brotherhood, specifically how the Night Mother has no listener.
Oh, brilliant.
I like it. I like it. I like where this is going. I decided to have a wise woman from the Skull tribe have made up a song about the danger of the Dark Brotherhood. And this is how Bodarun knows about. I feel like Bodarun would be more likely to destroy the Dark Brotherhood rather than join them simply because she is not an evil character.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Man, there's a lot to chew on in that little...
There is. A lot of the additional information here is about some things that happened at the start, and then sort of an accounting of equipment and stuff. I think
we got a good bit to chew on here.
Yeah, let's talk about the basis of the character. First of all, the narrative, very clever. I admit I didn't quite get where it was going at first. I didn't get it. It took me a second.
Kind of saw a little bit just because the character and the way it was being referred to. I thought it had to be some kind of other person perspective, but I wasn't sure how that was going to play out. So
right. Well, and it all makes sense in the end, right? I mean,
yeah, it was wrapped up very well.
The narrative starts with I write this with my dying breath, right? And then we go through this whole it kind of explains how did Bodarun get here, right? And then it's all tied up with a nice, neat bow at the end.
Yeah.
All right. I love the idea of a primitive, isolated Skull warrior coming to Skyrim for the first time and being faced with civilization, such as it is.
Right.
I think that's great. And then completely finding themselves immersed and victim to a civil war that they have nothing to do with.
Right.
I mean, they have no skin in the game either way.
No.
Right?
They're pretty much as removed as you can get.
Right. So what this reminds me of a lot is some of the characters that I've created also, where, it was kind of the seed of an idea and the narrative starts to come together with experience and different things like that. So you come into this world and you're attacked by Stormcloaks and a follower dies and boom, there's your animosity. There is your call to action, right? Or at least one of them. Right? And then there's the hidden agenda, which could be trying to hide the fact that she's a lycanthrope, right? It's just the lycanthropy is a huge problem. It's a random thing, right?
Right.
All of that. So there's a lot going on here, but I like it. It's really good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So I will be interested, I think, in this case, to see what you decide to do going forward with the narrative. So I think this is really clever, and I think it's really well written, by the way, Andy. But it's written from the perspective of a character who dies at the end.
Yeah. Now it's going to be fun to hear the voice of the character.
Or maybe we don't hear the voice of the character. I don't know. I'm just curious to see what he decides to do going forward.
Yeah.
Pretty good. All right.
Yeah, and a great and clever way to tie in what the game gives you or gave you.
Absolutely. All right.
Awesome.
Nice job. You level up. What a couple of nerds we are. All right. So now it is time to stop the recording. Hang on.
Stop the recording.
Start the recording.
No.
Okay. Recording started. Now we are moving on to number 8.
And it will probably be the last one we get to, I'm guessing.
Yep. I think you're right, Joe. We've got just a little over 15 minutes left. So here we are.
All right.
Number 8.
From Cat.
Yay, Cat!
With the character Cassia Eris. Cassia Eris. And I always do appreciate phonetic spellings.
Yeah.
Okay, so the narrative starts on Sundas, the 8th of the first seed 4th Era 2002 in Proudspire Manor. Dear Mother, I arrived in Skyrim yesterday and inspected the house. Vicky appointed it well, but I think it's for the best that she dismissed Belrand. I found cutlery stashed in the office among other signs of lapsing memory. The house's chef commendable features consist of
Chief,
Chief, not chef. Sorry, there's an extra letter in there I missed. I don't know why this chef was so commendable, but
well, he's hiding silverware. Okay, sorry.
That weirdo.
I didn't want to lose any context.
No. Well pointed. Okay. The house's chief commendable features consisted of a basement bath and a nice view of the patio. It's far too small for more than a handful of staff. Even 3 servants would be cramped. I have posted a notice as I don't feel comfortable without an attendant, especially someplace this far out in the sticks, as grandfather would say. I attended temple this evening, then came home straight away. We will need to round out the liquor cabinet, which has been stocked mostly with cheap, strongly flavored red wines and those meads the Nords are so fond of. The heavy seasoning does a poor job of masking the coarser quality of the alcohol. I did find a small stash of Surly Brothers, which I am saving for guests, and a passable Alto Blanc, which I am sipping as I write. Unfortunately, the cheeses here are just as rustic as the wines, so I've only some pastries to nibble on to accompany it. I hope you and Father are doing well. I'm sure that Arius will come through with the paperwork shortly, and you can be back in some semblance of civil living before summer. And send a portrait, or at least a sketch, once Vicky's babe arrives. I can't wait until she and Dom can come visit. I never was any good at botany, and the sooner she can come back here, the better. I don't even know most of the flowers that she planted. Apparently, all I retained from Muriel's lessons is that nightshade is poisonous. Please don't blame her. The poor woman tried her best. I just have no head for the subject. Love, your dutiful daughter, Cassia.
God.
Oh, a nice letter to home.
Freaking love that.
An upscale Cassia.
Yeah. Okay.
That's brilliant.
So basically, we've got a character who's come to Solitude to house sit. I mean, right?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, right? And is going to get sucked into an adventure.
And is a little bit appalled by the way it was left.
I love it. I really, really love it. I like it's an interesting way to do the narrative. Mm-hmm. But it pays attention to all these details. I mean, you really get a sense for how kind of elitist Cassia is, like how she's kind of looking down her nose at these provincials who eat rustic cheeses and bad wine.
These simpleton Nords who
like
this mead they're so fond of.
It's fantastic in that way.
Yeah.
And, just the little touches, too, about, how all she can do is nibble on pastries. Like, it also has this sense of, sending back to, mom and dad to say, my sister is really putting me out by making me live in these extreme conditions, which I think is hilarious. That I love that setup.
Eddie Murphy coming to America?
Yeah.
It's
neat.
really good.
It's like really cool.
Okay, so we have a setup just for that initial note of a upscale woman.
Yeah.
And somehow landed, in Solitude.
Yeah.
Okay, so our character status. A few weeks before the season started, I began developing a number of character ideas in parallel. All of them interested me, and I figured I would wait until the live stream to decide which one to use. Cassia was not among them. 3 days before the first episode, I was skimming some old files and found my character journal for Victoria Eris, an Imperial who came to Skyrim to expand her family's tea business. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Of course she was.
Yeah. I mean, who else is going to do it?
I enjoyed that playthrough so much that I decided on the spot to do a sequel this season. In a state fire back home has caused the family's financial tides to turn, and her little sister now has to scramble to save their livelihood while maintaining her sense of dignity. Unfortunately, unlike her sister, Cassia has no talent for cooking or alchemy, and much prefers dances, gossip, and parties.
I love this.
I'm also a sucker for trying to synthesize wildly desperate things in the game. Disparate. Mm-hmm. Last season, it was Regat in the female Argonian body. This season, it is apparently Jane Austen in Skyrim.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking, this has a little Pride and Prejudice kind of thing going
it does.
on.
There are some questions about the character's race. Do we know that?
I'm going to go just off of her inspiration, which was an Imperial.
Oh, okay. Maybe Imperial.
So Victoria was an Imperial, and this seems like it's her sister. That's what I'm getting from it.
That's so fantastic. So she's playing on a previous character as well.
Right.
So
right.
a character she played once before that came to Skyrim under the pretext of expanding the family's tea business, and now she lives in Skyrim, and now her sister's got to come and house sit. Well, she apparently goes home to have a baby. It's like the kind of shit real families do, which is what I really like about it.
Yeah. That's funny.
It's fantastic in that way, right?
Cassia's setup gives me some new challenge and opportunities this season. I've never played two characters in the same universe before, so tracking quests and NPCs between them is a new set of logistics. Sure enough, I've never explored two siblings differing reactions to the same parents before. Vicky, as the eldest, happily fell into the mold their mother prescribed for her, including returning home to marry for money after the estate burned down. Cassia resents having to come to Skyrim at all, though she will soon realize her opportunity to forge her own path in real life. Our player is the eldest child, so exploring a younger sibling's perspective will also sketch her roleplay. Finally, I plan to use the Mythic Game Master emulator engine to generate events back home and content for her mother's roleplay letters back to Cassia. This is a new way for me to introduce more random outside input into the plot.
Mythic Game Master emulator.
I am not familiar with it, but
that sounds like tabletop role-playing tool, maybe. Something.
Yeah, you're kind of right. I don't know anything about it, but it does. It sounds all sorts of awesome, actually. But yeah, fabulous. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, finishing up.
Epistolary?
I chose an epistolary format for my creative writing this season because I prefer first-person narrative both when writing my character stories during playthrough and reviewing them afterwards. I would agree. I have a tendency to do that myself. The immediacy of first-person perspective helps me get deeper into character while I'm playing. Consequently, it also produces more vivid nostalgia for me when I reread it afterwards. Yeah, I agree with everything in that paragraph. Cassia's central conflict is duty versus passion. Her strong sense of duty to her family and society has been drilled into her by upbringing. Conflicting with this is her yearning to follow her heart. a need most young adults have at some point.
Right.
Reconciling her desire to both uphold her duty and be true to herself, even if she is not quite sure who she is yet, without having either choice produce lasting guilt.
Right.
Is going to be central to her development. I look forward to seeing what kind of young woman she becomes by the end of the season, as do I.
Right.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed the Jane Austen.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Any way you slice it, this is going to be interesting to watch, right? Like, how can she go out into Skyrim and have adventures and make sure that she doesn't also destroy the family tea business, right? What if mom ends up or dad ends up sending her a letter that, trying to set her up with some Skyrim noble or something like that, trying to encourage her to marry into another powerful family, or
right.
There's any number of bits of mischief that she could get into.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that this characterizes one of the things that is going to be really fun for us to talk about in future episodes this season. And that is, don't be afraid of conflict. Run toward the conflict with your hair on fire, because that is where the interesting things are happening. The more difficult, the better.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about arguments and sword fights.
Right.
We're talking about like real societal and social problems. Right?
In some sense, I can see some of this conflict in this character similar to one of your more recent characters. What was her name?
Breezy?
Yeah, Breezy.
Yeah.
Has some kind of that similar individual passion that is direct in face of family obligation.
Right. Yeah.
And that'll be fun to hear on how that gets resolved.
I think with character like this too, you want to bring some diversity to the character. I would say, I think with a character like this, you want an individual who is sort of impacted by the stereotypes and pushing back on them at the same time.
Right.
Because there are some things that are real, having to do with rich, noble families trying to make alliances, trying to make money, trying to improve their position. A lot of times they use their children for that, especially women who have been a victim of that for thousands of years.
Nothing more than a bartering chip, sadly.
Exactly, right? And yet at the same time, you look at that and say, oh, that's a stereotype and I don't want to play that. But also the idea of, the strong, plucky woman, too, can also be a stereotype. And I think with a character like this, you want them to be complicated and real. You want them to push back on the right things and embrace the right things. I don't know. It'll be really fun to see how Kat plays with this concept, because
for sure.
I already look forward to hearing Cassia's next letter home, because I can only imagine what's going to be in it.
I'd be kind of curious on what the letters home to Cassia would be like.
Yeah. I mean, think about it too. Now, she's just moved into a giant house right across the street from Eriker, who's a complete dick. And he's probably a hound as well.
Probably.
And then there's Eriker's sister, who walks around town with all the money in the world and nothing to do but complain. There's so many little things going on, all the military intrigues and stuff.
Well, and that plays right into the gossipy thing.
Oh my God. Yeah, I
you
mean,
picked a great location.
Yeah, when she describes it as Jane Austen, I can't think of a better place for that scenario to play out than in Solitude.
And Proud Spire Manor.
And I know, even the name is
has
ridiculous, right? So, her coming out thing, to try to gain the respect of the local nobles is to host her first party or whatever, her first ball, whatever, inviting people over and stuff like that. And, when you think of movies and stories like Pride and Prejudice and Little Women, and all these things, it's like you see all of those scenes where the women are doing what is expected of them, and all the things that are going right and wrong, and all the struggles and all of the underhanded things that are happening. But then all the other ways that they're pushing back against all of those norms,
subtleties,
and all the things that go wrong because of that. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
But really, really nice.
Oh man, I'm just picturing the Thalmor Embassy on this one.
Oh, God. Your first party at the Thalmor Embassy.
I can't believe I wasn't invited.
Yeah.
Now I've got to sneak in.
I'm going to march straight up there and give them a piece of my mind. Do you know who I am? Like, you can kind of see it happening, right?
Oh, no. That's not keeping me up.
My father knows the Thalmor, blah, 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 blah. My father's best friends with Ondolamar, and he's not going to stand for this. Yeah, so great work.
Good
I
stuff.
love it. Everybody, you've all leveled up.
Marvelous.
Congratulations. And here ends episode 2 of season 3 of Character Crusade Unbound. We thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone. And if
really
we did not get to you, we shall. Patience.
We will.
Patience.
Yes, patience is required. Now, as I said, we had 18 submissions, you guys.
We got through 8.
We only made it through 8.
Not even half. But that's a great problem to have.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we are going to be putting together this episode. It will be released on iTunes, I don't know, within a week's time.
Yep.
Within a week's time. Now, if you're interested in the next episode, you got 2 weeks to role play. Our next discussion in episode 3 is going to be about the antagonists. And we are going to continue to work our way up through that arc plot structure. And when we talk about antagonists, we're going to be talking about the Federation or factions, the Nemesis or the antagonist, and the foil or the opposition. 3 different levels of antagonism maybe that your character could experience, and how we might play those out in game. It'll be a lot like tonight's episode, where we have about 15 minutes where we talk about this idea of the antagonist, how it translates to factions, antagonists, and opposition. And then we're going to launch into the homework again. So if you didn't get your homework read tonight, we apologize, and we will darn toot and try to get to it next time, right?
Next time.
That's the idea.
Yes, yeah.
And hopefully we will have Matt back then, who can help us with all the reading and help us get all this stuff moving forward. All right?
That luscious baritone voice of Mr. Matt.
Mr. Matt. Mr. Matt. The dulcet tones of Matthew.
The dulcet tones.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all tonight for joining us. We really do appreciate it, and we will catch you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Night.
All right. Recording is off. We are fully recorded for tonight.
Fully recorded.
All right. You guys are the best. Thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for all of your submissions. The support was overwhelming. We obviously have to find a way to get through more material in an evening, but we've only got 3 hours, so we're going to continue to do our best.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on making the front end of the show as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
So that we can really dive through and get through as much of this as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I would say my evaluation is that Most of you, I think, did a pretty good job of reining in the amount of content. There were only a couple of them where we had to kind of truncate the content significantly. So just be mindful of that when you're making your submissions. We love all the submissions, but also just be mindful that we have to try and read these and get through discussion during the stream. So anything that you can do to kind of keep your pacing to a manageable level, I guess, as you go forward, that would be helpful. Now, we understand that your characters are in their stories are only going to get more complicated. There's only going to be more to tell. So if there's something that you want to record but you don't necessarily think we need to read, you can also make a notation. I mean, feel free to use the system to record as much content as you want. But if there's something that you don't think is necessary for us to read, or something that you specifically want us to pay extra attention to, just notate that, and we'll do that.
Yeah,
okay?
That's a really good point.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it'll help us, and it'll help us get your stuff and your story out in the best way possible. Absolutely.
So if you guys are out there on Discord and you run into people who missed the live stream tonight, just let them know that we'll be releasing the raw recording of the stream, but that the podcast version will be coming out within a week or so.
Yep. So as soon as we get the files moved around, I'll start trying to look at them later this week and putting them together.
Yeah. And as always, if you've got any feedback on the format, you can always post something on Discord to either of our attention and let us know if you've got suggestions or ideas or things like that. We're always open to that. We're trying to refine this process and make it as efficient as we can. And of course, I feel like tonight was a little bit of an anomaly. Things tend to go more smoothly when there's all three of us here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Matt is out of town this week, so
yeah.
Just all right. How that works.
Well, thank you all very much. We're going to shut it down and start transferring files. I will see those of you who want to attend a live stream for Tuesday Night Stories next week. Otherwise, right back here in 2 weeks for Unbound.
Yes, and thank you to Stu for your willingness to swap your streams this week. So it was actually my anniversary yesterday, so
congratulations.
Thank you.
Good cause. It was a good cause.
It was a good cause, so.
All right. We'll catch y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Just shut the mic off.
That's okay. That's okay. Oh. Well, that was pretty good.
That was really good.
We got through 8. Now we got a sense for the effort that's involved to do this.
Right.
So